Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the October 1st, 2025 meeting of the Halifax Board of Police Commissioners for the Halifax Regional Municipality. Before we begin, I just wanted to take a moment to recognize that yesterday, September 30th, was the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. This day is an opportunity for all of us to honor the children who never returned home, survivors of residential schools, their families, and their communities. As a board, we recognize the importance of listening, learning, and working towards stronger relationships built on trust, respect, and reconciliation with the Indigenous peoples, including the Mi'kmaq, the original inhabitants of this land. And just before we start the first item, the land acknowledgement, today is Treaty Day. And so Treaty Day recognizes the historic treaties of peace and friendship between the Mi'kmaq people and the British Crown. The date October 1st was specifically chosen because in the 1752 treaty, it was designated as the day when the Mi'kmaq would receive gifts from the Crown to renew their friendship and submissions. It also marks the beginning of Mi'kmaq History Month in Nova Scotia. On Treaty Day and throughout events, people celebrate, reflect, and raise awareness about Mi'kmaq culture, heritage, and the ongoing significance of treaty rights. So in keeping with that, we'll call the meeting to order and we will have the land acknowledgement. The Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. Item number 2, community announcements. Commissioner Hinch.
Thank you, Chair. So on October the 8th is District 8's Town Hall. And it's with myself and the mayor, and it's at the Halifax Needham Center from 6 till 7 at 3372 Devonshire Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for community announcements? I just wanted to read one. It's always nice to hear from our community, and I think Chief McNeil will be probably speaking of the events that occurred over the last little while. Oh, what did I say? Chief McLean. Sorry about that. I guess I was thinking of Cape Breton names. I don't know. Yeah. So we received some correspondence from community members from Dalhousie University, and I just wanted to read a little summary of that from residents in the vicinity of Dalhousie University. And the communication read that on behalf of our community, we express our sincere thank you and your organizations, and that was from to HRP and Dalhousie University, for coordinating a well-managed homecoming this year. The preventative approach taken by HRP officers, which allowed for individual house parties, but discouraged loitering on streets and sidewalks, was very effective. This past weekend seemed to be a return to homecoming we've experienced in our neighborhood many years ago, and before the onset of the recent unsanctioned street parties that began in 2017. With continued management of this nature, our hope is that in time, the burden placed on HRP can be reduced. So this was a very thoughtful note from residents of the Dalhousie broader community. Thank you, Chief. Never going to live that one down, I think. All right. Number 3, approval of the minutes from September 3rd. Can we have a call for approval of the minutes from September 3rd? Commissioner Hinch. Vice Chair Kent, thank you. Were there any errors or omissions to note in the minutes? Barring none, we'll call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion carried. Thank you. Approval of the order of business and of any additions or deletions. Clerk, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Chair O'Malley, there are no additions or deletions from the clerk's office. However, there's a request for a change of item sequence so that item 10.4, community safety update, can be heard before item 10.2.
Thank you. Are there any commissioners that would like to make any additions or modifications to the order of business? Pardon me? I don't believe so. No. Barring none, can we call for the question? All those in favor of, I need a mover and a seconder first. Vice Chair Kent, thank you for moving that. A seconder? Commissioner Carter, thank you. So all those in favor, please signify by saying yes. Motion carried. Thank you. We'll move on to business arising out of the minutes, which I don't believe there was any, Madam Clerk. So item number 6, call for declaration of conflicts of interest. Commissioners, does anyone have a conflict of interest to declare as a result of any item on today's agenda? Commissioner Bezic-Escalard.
Thanks, Chair. I just have a question, just because I'm named specifically on one of the items coming up for the nomination to the CAPG board. I don't know if that's actually a conflict or not.
I don't think so.
No. Okay.
No, it's, we'll explain the context of that when that one comes up. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
what I wanted to know. Yeah,
Okay.
perfect. Thank you.
Any other potential conflicts of interest that any member would like to declare? All right. Consideration of deferred business from September 3rd. Item 7.1, governance implication of Province of Nova Scotia Police Review. There is a motion on the floor from the September 3rd meeting, and that was moved by Commissioner Kent and seconded by Commissioner Hinch. Perhaps I will ask before we go over that whether Vice Chair Kent would like to make any possible additions or to that or changes to that motion.
Yeah, I would. Thank you. I think we should change the word direct, which is in the first line, to request. We don't have the authority to direct. That would be the only change.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Can that just be viewed as, since we already
We haven't put,
tabled the other, we never voted on it, so does that just be considered a friendly change? Thank you. So the first speaker, I believe, would either be, I don't know, is it, I think it's going to be
yeah,
yourself.
normally it would be me.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, Vice Chair Kent, over to
Okay,
you.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yeah, I put this motion on the floor because we have received the Deloitte Nova Scotia Department of Justice Comprehensive Policing Review report. And it's a larger report, but the recommendations aren't, there aren't that many. However, they're particularly important, and I will be attending the Nova Scotia Association of Police Governance conference and AGM later this week, next week, sorry. And I know that group will be reviewing all of this and discussing this because they will take a position to put forward to the Department of Justice. I know that. That's what has been circulating. So I just wanted to make sure that our commissioners had the chance to have a conversation around anything that's concerning or worth talking about for me to hear, that so we can conclude on in a formal way what kinds of concerns I might be taking to that meeting on behalf of the board. So that's why that's here, and I'll leave it right there.
Perhaps if he would not mind, we'll ask Commissioner Moore to share a few comments on more current information that he might have related to this subject.
Thank you, Chair. To the commissioners. I had a brief conversation with the representatives from the Department of Justice about a week and a half ago. And I know that the initial discussion was potentially exploring maybe doing a workshop or something along those. And what I was advised is that DOJ is planning on later in the fall of having a kind of a meeting, a bigger meeting. to have those, and they thought that may be beneficial to have it at that one. So I have no more details at this point, but that is the latest piece. I've also requested some additional information in relation to the layered policing, as I understand that there's a framework in place to talk about layered policing and what some of the training may be in relation to that. And I've also asked in relation to the single RMS system timing and the like. And it looks like they're be going out to market at some point to seek proposals. And so there'll be more information, still a lot of, I would say, question marks around timing and detail. But that's where we are right now. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Moore. May I invite Mr. Bates, our policy strategist, to offer some commentary on this particular topic as well?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. Josh Bates, policing policy strategist. So just some wider context. The report in your agenda today responds to item 4.2 in our work plan, which is to analyze the province's comprehensive review of the policing structure in Nova Scotia for implications on the board's statutory responsibilities. And of course, this lines up with the ongoing discussions that Commissioner Moore is having with his counterparts at DOJ, and also the meeting that our deputy chair referenced later this month. I think it would be helpful for the board to kind of bring forward any concerns that you might have related to the report so that we can share that with kind of a wider audience. The report does highlight kind of 3 specific areas in terms of governance. I know the report's about more than just governance, but there are 3 areas that might be lacking some clarity. So the first, Commissioner Moore referenced, that's around layered policing. I understand that we'll be receiving some more information on that at a later date. The second is, what's going to be the role of today's police boards in the context of community safety boards that are referenced in the report, right? And the third piece is around oversight, right? We know that there's a difference between oversight that police boards are able to have over municipal police forces and then police advisory boards over the RCMP. So if we're moving towards a single policing model, which looks like we might be taking some tentative steps in that direction, not entirely, but that's what the report speaks to. What does that mean in terms of broad oversight? Because there are differences between advisory boards and police boards. So those are 3 issues that I highlight in the report, but I know that there's probably some other issues that commissioners would like to discuss, and there's an opportunity to do that today.
Thank you, Mr. Bates. I'll open the floor to any commissioners who would like to make comment.
I'll start it off.
Thank you, Vice Chair Kent.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll start it off, and I would ask that each of the councillors, if you have access to to page 17, which is the foundational changes. So some of these have been brought up at the NSAPG, just in people sending notes back and forth in email, but nothing's been determined for a position. But when I look at them, I'm just going to go through them and just say things that I just pop up very quickly to me. And the Unified Records Management System, a single provincial-wide records management system for all police agencies to improve data sharing, coordination, oversight, all that. Ultimately, there's going to be a cost associated to implementing that and creating all the infrastructure that goes with that, and maybe the human resource folks that need to go with that. So my first question would be, and certainly should be on the table as conversations happen, is that the cost associated to it. I think in general it's a system that I think that could be certainly useful. I'd be interested in hearing both chiefs' thoughts on this. And in some cases, we may already have some of this in place, and so we may be ahead of the curve on some of it. So in the next one would be enhanced police resourcing and ensuring that police services across the province are adequately resourced. This is a provincial report, and my position, and I think some of the other councillors that I have as colleagues, have been concerned around policing costs, and perhaps it's time for our provincial or federal governments to support the policing services. So again, cost is a concern around, not concern, I'm just really curious when they say enhanced police resourcing, what are their thoughts on where the money will come from for these enhancements? Layered policing model and establishment of community safety boards, I kind of see them as both the same because they talk about special constables and safety officers. I too, as Josh has noted, the establishment of community safety boards, we don't know what that's going to look like. We don't know if that's a replacement for the boards that are already in place. We don't know if this is in addition to the boards that are in place. So it leaves this kind of fairly large oversweep of the boards that are in place probably have more concerns in some of our rural areas who are really only advisory boards and very under-resourced boards. They don't, some of them don't even have a full complement of the expected number of commissioners on those boards. So this could be welcome, and this is where the conversations will go for me in the meetings ahead for me, is that how many are, what's the effect, what's the impact on those? It could be, in some cases, it's very welcome to hear that something's going to be reconsidered. But right now, for our board, who is a strong board and has legislated requirements and mandates, it's going to be interesting to see where that all gets fleshed out, and we'll have to wait and see. The new provincial policing standards, of course, anytime we talk about a more prescriptive and a new way of standardizing things, that could come with equipment, that could come with human resources, it could come with sweeping changes that are very definitive to our policing services, that can have a huge impact. So, of course, cost is associated to that, but also the shift in changes. We don't know. It's an unknown of what that could come out and look like. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity that Bill is talking about, but I also think that maybe that same kind of framework should be put in place for the Nova Scotia Police Governance Board, so that, because that's the area where the advocacy works. And a new billing framework. I think Haley spoke to it when we were in the last meeting, briefly saying that something is coming, and it's particularly around the formula of per officer cost. And so we'll see. It's still unsure if that's meant to be a hike in the cost. Anytime a new formula is developed, it could go either way. Let's hope that it's lowered. So those are my things that pop up for me, and I look forward to hearing from some of the other commissioners to enlighten me as to my conversations that I'll be having at the meeting.
Thank you, Vice Chair Kent. Commissioner Bezic-Escanlar.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Josh, for the report, and Becky for your thoughts on pointing all that out. Overall, I thought the report was, as a provincial report, was actually fairly reasonable. Like, it talks to some things that I think would raise the bar for policing in general in the province. I'll also note that 9 out of the 16 people on the committee who worked on the report were from Halifax. So it seems like there was some opportunity for local Haligonians to have impact on it. Also, Chief McNeil, who the reason might have been in mind, Chief McNeil from Truro was also part of the group who created this report, in case that was why the name was in mind. What my biggest concern with the report is that it may take away from flexibility at the local level. I think from my short time on the board so far, and from working with you, Bill, and with everyone on your team, the community safety side, and the two chiefs here, it does seem like we are actually on the right track in many ways, and in some ways ahead of the curve in looking at how policing would look like in a community that continues to grow and develop. So I wouldn't want what the report leads to limit our own flexibility. So specifically, two things I wanted to bring up was about the community safety board structure and what community safety officers look like. So point number one, defining what a community safety officer is. So Bill, I think you were going to go back, and that's going to be part of what's going to be fleshed out in the next little while. Lots of different descriptions of what a community safety officer could be in the report, ranging from what we had in mind for the non-police crisis response. They mentioned some people they mentioned some powers that seem to be in line with what is used in the UK as a police community support officer. some things that might be in line with what we currently use with bylaw, some things that are in line with what my own personal experience as an auxiliary police constable in Fredericton seemed used to do, in other places like Kingston, where they have a police community volunteers. So there's lots of different ways that this could be approached, and how the province will eventually define what community safety officer looks like in layered policing would define what the boards would be responsible for. Before I get to the boards, I'll just mention as another example, traffic. So in Vancouver, they have special constables who are specifically responsible for traffic. The way that it works there is those who are on this traffic authority, they do get paid less than police officers because their scope of practice or scope of work is different. But it also means that when an event is requiring traffic control, they are charged less than what they would be charged if it was a police officer being used. So I wonder if that could be part of it. Okay, sorry, a bit disorganized. So defining what a community safety officer looks like would help to define what the board's role would be. It makes sense for a board to exist that would do similar to what we do on the policing side. So eventually when the community safety programs are all set up and at full strength, it would make sense that there is a board working with you, Bill, and your team to help reflect what the public wants out of the board. So whether it's the non-police crisis response, or if it's traffic authority stuff, or if it's police support officer type roles, it would make sense for a board to be present for that. I think on this board, we've actually managed to achieve a fair breadth of representation here. We have people from, all different parts of the city, different professions and backgrounds, people who have specifically police background, people who have a public service background, and it would make sense that that be reflected in the board and community safety board. One specific group that may not be as well reflected in our board that might make sense to have reflected in the community safety board might be an actual client or a user of community safety services. So when we're thinking like of the non-crisis response for social or mental health things, it might make sense to have someone specifically recruited who has that background to help inform what the board talks about. So bottom line, whatever this looks like, however this is defined by the province, it does seem like the report makes sense to improve services across the province. What I would hope is that it doesn't take away from our ability in Halifax to innovate, which I think we have in the last little while under the participation of everyone around the table here. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other commissioners? Okay, I had a couple of points that I wouldn't mind sharing, if the
Please, go
board
ahead.
would entertain that. So one of the goals, Bill, that I read was that the goal is to establish a single police board for a regional police service and per provincial police district. This is kind of the concept that I'd seen, streamlining the total number of oversight boards. So I think we should be trying to ensure that this consolidation doesn't dilute in any way Halifax Regional Municipality's role, given that we represent 48% of the population of the province.
Yeah.
Another concern I had relates to the provincial appointee. We're most grateful to have Commissioner Carter join us. It took a year for the province to do that, and in this report, it talks about eliminating the provincial appointee on boards. And although, I think they should reevaluate the reasoning behind that thinking, because, I think it presents potentially an important link for sharing concerns back to the Department of Justice through the provincial appointee representative. So eliminating that role, I'm not quite sure how we'll have, greater feedback mechanisms to the Department of Justice. And I guess the last point, because a lot of great points were shared by Vice Chair Kent and Commissioner Bezic-Escalera around cost and the RMS system. There's also the CAD system. So there's mention in there about a consolidated CAD system for the province. And so option one does mandate the transition to a provincial call center utilizing a common CAD system. So, HRP currently operates the IES, Integrated Emergency Response Service Dispatch Center, which already handles 911 calls for HRP, Halifax Regional Fire, and the RCMP, Halifax District. So I think we need clarity on how this well-established, large-scale integrated dispatch center would be incorporated into or affected by a centralized provincial CAD system, and ensuring that there's no disruption to any emergency response capabilities that our residents enjoy today. So those are the three comments that I'd like to add. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any comments for Commissioner Carter?
Yeah, just a couple of points. Becky raised, Commissioner Kent raised a point on the one recording system, keeping track with records of things, one system. Back in 1993-94, the Homolka, Bernardo Homolka inquiry, which some of you are aware of, did say that Canada needed to have a national system to do that so that all police agencies across the country could talk to each other, share files, and so on. That didn't happen. Now we've had the MCC, the Mass Casualty Commission, that says the same thing. We need a system that we can work from, and that's where the province is coming from, trying to get a system that everybody was on the same page. Now, Halifax and the RCMP did develop a system that we will share two different systems to work together. That's not probably the best method, and I think that's what the province is getting at there. The other one was a centralized 911 center, that sort of facility. Something we should ask and be aware of is there should be a redundancy. So if all the power ended here in Halifax, where do those calls go? If anything that happened as a disaster in Halifax, where do the calls go? Currently, we have both systems in Halifax, the RCMP system and the HRP. So that's something we need to talk about and consider.
Thank you, Commissioner Carter. Any other comments from any commissioners? Becky, Commissioner Moore.
Yep. Just thank you, Chair, through to commissioners. Just as a more of an information item, the province released their fire service governance review at the end of last week, and there's talk in there in relation to fire dispatch services, in addition to a standalone fire records management system for the province. So just as a context, there's a great deal of discussion around CAD, RMS, comm centers, backup redundancies, hot backups, and how that all intersects with the 911 system and next generation 911 is coming. So there's a great deal of discussion around those topics right now, and I'm cautiously optimistic that the various provincial departments are starting to have those discussions around what the art of the possible may look like. So just wanted to provide that to the board as background.
Thank you, Commissioner Moore. Any other closing comments, possibly from the chiefs? Would you like to add anything onto this? No? Okay.
I think the most pertinent questions already been asked is there needs to be more clarity as we move forward.
Thank you, Chief. All right, Becky, would you like to? Commissioner Kent, would you like to close things off?
Yeah, I'll close things up, but I wonder if Chief Superintendent Duff can offer insight into the contribution that the RCMP would have had at that table in developing this. Do you have any sense of that engagement?
Through the chair to the commissioner, my apologies. I know very little about the development and whatnot of the policing review and or the contributions that.
Do you think that's something that you would consider getting back to me on? The conference starts on the 15th, sometime between now and then. If I could get a little bit of a sense of it, it may come up at the discussions, because an awful lot of the other boards are represented only by RCMP, and I'm not sure how much of it it's been inclusive of the processes in the policing service there. They talk about a singular service. So what does that mean sort of to the RCMP?
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you could
Get that information.
be
for you.
helpful. So maybe it can be sent to the chair. Chair can share it with everyone, but it would be certainly helpful to me. Thank you. Thank you. It's greatly appreciated. I think most likely we're going to have lots more conversations about this, whether it's the iteration of our current board or a few years out. We never know. It could be 10 years out. But thank you for that. And this is the way to get it all started, considering the report came down to us. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's good.
Thank you, Vice Chair Kent. So we'll call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any against? Motion carried. Thank you. Moving on to item number 8, correspondence, petitions, and deletions. Madam Clerk, is there any additional correspondence that was received?
No, there was no additional correspondence received or circulated.
And 8.2, petitions. Was there any petitions received?
The clerk's office did not receive petitions for this meeting.
And commissioners, any petitions that you would like to submit? Okay. Item 8.3, presentations. Although we have many presentations, this says none, but we move on to 9 and then we'll start the presentations. Interesting format. So these are information items that were brought forward. They were reports from previous meetings that various commissioners asked for a presentation on. So the very first one, 9.1, was requested by Commissioner Mancini, and it's about violence occurring on Halifax Transit buses and terminals. And I believe this is going to be a joint presentation by Chief McLean, Chief Superintendent Duff, and Halifax Transit. The floor is yours. Ah. And I believe as well, Robin Garris from Halifax Transit, the Executive Director, is joining us as well as part of this presentation. Thank you.
There was a request from the board for an information report back in March regarding the violent incidents related to HRM Transit from 2022 to 2024. And specifically, the board requested information related to the number of Halifax Transit reported violent incidents in this time period, the number of violent incidents in each of the 3 years involving attacks on Halifax Transit operators, and then the number of times in each of the 3 years that both HRP and the RCMP detachment responded to issues of transit violence on buses. So this report was put together in a collaboration of the 3 entities, ourselves, the RCMP, and the Halifax Transit, to ensure the information and data was provided by all 3 to support this request. So I'll turn it over now to the transit piece that will speak to the specific data from their organization that they compiled, and then myself and John will finish up with the police reported data.
Good afternoon. My name is Lawrence McDonald. I'm Senior Analyst with Halifax Transit. Picking up on some of the points that were already brought forward, we looked at incidents that were logged within our Transit Master application, where all of our incidents get logged through either through the operators or through our control center. We looked at the 3 years in 2022, 23, and 24. We broke them down into both verbal and physical incidents that were observed and happened on the Halifax Transit, and then further broke these down to how the interactions were, if they were between passengers to operators, passengers to passengers, as well as passengers to our supervisors. As far as starting with verbal incidents, obviously they are any interaction between the 2 folks, which is an escalated in nature, but does not lead to any type of physicality. They can escalate quickly and are obviously things of concern. Some of the examples of verbal incidents we see there could be fare disputes, passengers who are disruptive need to be addressed by the operator, or incidents where a mobile or terminal supervisor needs to address passengers for their conduct on transit property. Looking at the table, it breaks it down for the 3 years in question, and then breaks it down further to as far as how they ended up as far as passenger to operator, passenger to passenger, and then passenger to supervisor. The one trend that we did see is through these 3 years, they did escalate every year. We do have a large number of incidents in the passenger to passenger element, but also our largest number are passengers to operators, as we see. They go from 73 in 2022 up to 171 in 2024. Physical incidents are just as they are. They're an escalated issue that becomes physical in nature. Again, they can be things like fare disputes, disputes on buses or in terminals where groups of passengers have a dispute and becomes violent or physical. Or we see intoxicated passengers who have been addressed by transit operators, supervisors, and there is a negative reaction from that. Again, we do see a similar escalation over the 3 years. And again, we see as far as between passengers being the largest group number as far as the incidents, with passengers to operators and passengers to supervisors not as high, but alarmingly, the numbers speak for themselves as far as 109 in the 3 years. We also looked at incidents involving youth under 18 years old as far as what we considered youth for this. And we broke things down over from 2020 to 2024 and 2025 year to date. And again, as we see, there's an increasing number throughout the years, starting in 2020 of 109 incidents involving youth all the way up to it's 2024, 624. With the total of 1,504 incidents involving youth through the reporting period. We also looked at racial incidents. These are incidents where there was observed comments made in a negative fashion to an operator, supervisor, or another passenger that were racially based, and as outlined in the graph, we are seeing again an increase year over year with those types of incidents, with 2024 seeing a marked increase. So yeah. Now I'm going to turn things over to our folks with RCMP and HRP. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to start us off here just on the methodology of the statistics that we're going to be presenting. The data provided in the section is a joint submission between Halifax Regional Police and the RCMP Halifax Regional Detachment. So therefore it covers all of HRD. Violent incidences within our definition include assault, possession of weapon, sexual offenses, robbery, uttering threats, and harassment when referencing any of the data that we're going to be speaking to. And for the purpose of this report, a robust search methodology, struggling over that word today, was developed, and the following methods were used to identify incidences. Searching by location code of transit bus shelters and bus terminals, mapping out incidences, and geofencing were reported within 10 meters of a bus shelter, and the ferry terminals were also searched by address. Sorry, my bad. And this is just a breakdown of the compilation of our statistics over this period in time, 2022 to 2024. And as you can see, the vast majority of the 427 incidents fell into the assault level 1 category. And I won't go through them number by number, but it shows a fair depiction of the offenses as we utilized within the our definition of violence.
So as you'll see from this slide, violent incidents on HRM transit by policing agency over the period of the years from 22 to 24, there were 427 total incidents. HRP responded to 396 of those, which is 93%. And then doing simple math that even I can do, that will leave the RCMP with 7% left of the 31 of the 427. And you can see how that's captured in the data over those years period. As you also see, within the HRP jurisdiction, this heat map, I think, is a good representation of that. The majority of those violent incidents occurred within the Dartmouth area, and again, specifically at the bridge terminal during that period of time from 22 to 24. I do believe the report which accompanied this presentation proves that you would have received actually lays this out in a more finer detail as well. And there has been a growing number of incidents within the RCMP jurisdiction, with 14 incidents in 2024. As you can see, those areas that are highlighted for the most part are, in fact, terminals, Scotia Square, Halifax Shopping Center, and out in the West Division. We also looked at the number of hate crimes and hate incidents which we responded to in between that period of time. There's no RCMP slide on this because there were no hate incidents reported in RCMP jurisdiction. There was a grand total of 38 over that period of time, the numbers which are specified here. As we can see, actually, for this year, the number actually seems to have been decreasing. 2 hate incidents for grand total of 2 for 2025 year to date as to the time of this report, which would have been sometime within the last month. And that, I believe, we'll turn it over to the chair.
Thank you. I'll offer this up to commissioners for questions around the data. Commissioner Mancini.
Thank you very much for this presentation. It's good to see our friends from Halifax Transit here. This is a topic is of great interest to our residents and our community. We're a growing municipality, one of the fastest growing municipalities in the country. This council that is with us now is a priority is enhanced transit. We need to have more reliable, efficient transit than ever before. It's a top priority. And I think all 17 of us at council have campaigned on improved transit. And we have a new transit director, Robin. Welcome aboard. Robin's been making the rounds throughout our municipality to speak with those that ride transit and involved in transit, including councillors. And so it is a priority, and it's concerning to see these numbers, the increase year after year after year. Now, some of that is sheer numbers. We're increasing the number of residents. We're increasing the number of users. I believe we're almost back to our pre-COVID numbers or close to it now. But now the push is on. We need to invest more into transit, and safety is critical. Now, we've done a lot of things in the last few years when it comes to transit safety. Council has supported investing into specialized supervisors, and maybe we can have somebody from transit talk about that shortly and what change that has. It's a different type of supervisor that has a more focus on safety, and I think that's helped to improve things. We've done things like protective shields for the operators. So our older buses that we install those. Brand new buses come with those protective shields now. We have a code of conduct, and so there's a lot of things that have been in focus right now. However, we're still not there. And as we grow transit, we're still looking for other solutions. And, one of the discussions, and I look to you, Chief McLean, that I alluded to your maybe before when I first asked for this report was, what's the possibility of having periodically officers riding some of the more busier buses like a Route 1 from time to time periodically. It's the same conversation we're having about the old beat cop that used to walk down Spring Garden Road or here on Portland Street. And some of that has been happening a little bit, and that's been appreciated by the businesses. But, I don't believe personally we're at a place where we need to create a transit police, though the union, the AT union is asking for that, and many residents are asking for that. I think there's still a lot more that can be done before we get to that conversation. It's important that we continue to talk about safety on our buses and our terminals. It's concerning that the hate crimes have gone up, the situation has gone up. All those stats that you shared with us is concerning. So now the reason for me bringing this forward is, what's our action? I've mentioned some of the actions that have taken place. We are now coming into budget time. And if there's something that we can do to make sure our transit system is safer, either from a policing perspective or from a transit perspective, we need to know about it and then so we can advocate for it, because it has to be a priority. Just like priority transit, improving transit is a priority. At the same time, we have to move hand in hand with making sure safety is a priority. So my questions was, Mr. Chair, I'm going to ask if maybe transit could come forward and talk about the supervisors and what that has done, and also with the code of conduct and all the things that I talked about. And then Chief McLean, if you could give some thought and respond to the possibility to having officers periodically just ride some of the buses that we know that have the biggest complaints of particularly violence, or even just periodically riding the more popular usage of buses. So, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Phil Harrott, Director of Transit Operations with Halifax Transit. Thank you, Councillor Mancini. So related to safety efforts at Halifax Transit over the last couple of years, specifically several changes took place. First off, in 2023, we looked at how we were capturing our data, how we were reporting our data as we go forward in these types of incidents. From there, we went to council and requested additional service supervisors. The only difference with these supervisors as opposed to our mobile supervisors, they are stationed in the terminals where we were seeing the highest number of incidents. So they are the same position as our mobile supervisors, as opposed to driving around and responding. They are specifically at the Dartmouth Bridge Terminal, Lacewood Terminal, and as soon as a hiring is done, 2 more will be placed at other terminals. Their job there is to focus on those terminals, customer service, support for our staff, support for the public, and reporting. Being there to actually capture, look at what's happening and how we're reporting those and how we're reporting them back to. They work hand in hand with an extra duty officer that we have from HRP. Kind of liaising and looking at where the higher risk areas are, and identifying, and most importantly, building relationships, with our clients and our residents that frequent these bus terminals. To be there and build those relationships, specifically with youth through the public safety section. We also work with Max Chauvin and his team, and Amy Brierly and her team, and other supports through Amy's team. We had a group visiting the Dartmouth Bridge Terminal along with other parts of downtown Dartmouth in support of youth, to make sure we're starting to build those relationships. That's a large part of what we're trying to do. So again, those supervisors are focused on customer service and support for our staff and our clients within there. As Councillor Mancini mentioned, we've also installed shields in all of our conventional buses. We are currently looking at a safety plan, which is a comparison to what's happening in other transit properties across North America, but specifically Canada. I currently sit on the executive for the board of the CUTA, which is the Canadian Urban Transit Association, Committee for Safety and Security. We have also worked more with our partners in HRP and RCMP with more regular meetings and a liaison person from HRP to have these continuing conversations.
Could you speak to the impact of those supervisors? We looked at the stats here that were shared with us, Phil, and we still see numbers going up, but could you share with your experiences what impact, if any, that's made in the safety of those riding and working on the buses?
So I think when we first presented to HRM Council around this, in some aspects, we actually expected the numbers to go up because we actually have staff on site now reporting
Right.
and capturing that. So we are seeing some numbers go up. The numbers, for the most part, have remained relatively similar in the types of incidents, but the numbers overall are going up again because we are capturing more. We have seen, specifically in the area where those supervisors are, we have seen some of the severity of the incidents going down. There's still incidents, they're still being reported, but through the hard work of the terminal supervisors and the mobile supervisors and the relationships they're building, with the folks that are there, we are seeing some of the severity coming down. Not to take away from the severity and the amount of incidents that are happening, but we are seeing a little bit less. And again, want to give full credit to the terminal and mobile supervisors. They're out there. We've worked on increasing their training when it comes to mental health awareness, situational awareness, and a few things there. So across the board, we can say, there's been a slight decrease in severity. The numbers will go up, which is what we did predict in the beginning when we have staff on site capturing those incidents.
Yeah. Thanks, Phil. Chief McLean?
Yeah, thanks to the counselor too, to Phil's comments in terms of we've been involved in patrols at the transit terminals for the last number of years in terms of most of which has been funded actually through transit in terms from an extra duty perspective in terms of not affect frontline staffing. As you can see from the data that we provided, the majority of the incidents were occurring in a terminal basis, which I'm sure prompted their decision around their supervisor program in terms of being terminal focused. I do believe there is another report coming at some point, I think, Bill, about transit safety overall coming forward. I'm guessing the council at some particular time in terms of, I don't believe, we have no intention at this time to put police officers on buses. Again, still open to conversations with transit as we move forward, but at this particular time, that's not something that we intend to do.
And again, just to be clear, Chief, I wasn't suggesting we should have full-time officers.
No, I get it.
It's that periodically getting on a bus and riding as part of their day-to-day patrol, the type of thing. No different than the example I used for downtown, walking in the beat cop on our business community. But thank you.
Commissioner Bezic-Escalor.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks to the team from Transit and to the chiefs, of course, for the work on this. I want to start by just acknowledging this tough work that the transit operators definitely have in all of this here. Not just having to work with traffic, which continues to increase, crowding, challenges with the scheduling, air conditioning not working on buses.
Look at you paying attention.
I take the bus. Yeah, absolutely.
Good job.
There's also behavioral enforcement as well. So we see that in the numbers here. So just tip of the hat to the operators who are having to work with all this on your team. The stats are super important, but perceptions are even more important in driving the ridership that we want to have and address traffic and safety overall here. I have a few points I just want to make sure that I understand the stats, and then I have some questions. So one point. So you saw more than a doubling of verbal incidents from 2022 to 24. It may be in part from the increase in reporting from having supervisors present. I assume that ridership didn't double, so it actually is a real increase in incidents and not just by having more people taking the bus. Is that a fair assessment? Or?
Yes and no. One of the things coming through the years we looked at, we were coming out of the pandemic.
Okay.
So coming through into 23, 24, and this year to 25, we have returned to pre-pandemic ridership on the conventional transit. So when we do look at those first couple of years, 2021, 22, 23, we had a decreased ridership overall from the pandemic.
Okay, so it's partly that.
Sorry, probably one other thing just to clarify on increased reporting. We also collect incident reports from the operators, things that are happening out there and what they're experiencing firsthand. One of the things that we've done and made a change there, when I mentioned we had revamped and really looked at how we analyze that data in 2023, was including those into those operational data points. So quite a few of those numbers are coming through our mobile supervisors, our controllers, and how that's capturing. But on the back end, we're also working through the reports we're getting directly from the operators and incorporating those in the overall stats and analysts analysts are doing.
Okay, thanks. And looking at the physical incidents, the numbers seem to jibe with the reports that the police presented, which kind of makes sense. The most significant ones would lead to police reports. So that made sense to me. Notice the sharp increase amongst youth, essentially doubling the number of incidents, which may be part by ridership. I imagine part of this is due to the student transit pass, which started in 2021, if I Googled that correctly. So probably more students and therefore more youth, therefore more incidents. Does that seem fair?
No, I don't think that's the case. I
No?
think
Okay.
the youth ridership program and the youth student pass is a pretty standard approach across transit in Canada specifically. I think where we're seeing the large increases in some of the youth issues are actually at the terminals. So youth are looking for that place to get together and to to hang out and sometimes unfortunately a large group of youth get together and sometimes some of the pieces that we've looked into, it's a large group of youth, and what we're seeing is that they're loud. It's a large group of youth, and those complaints start to come in. Again, some of those responses are we actually have supervisors at some of those terminals now, specifically the ones that actually have the highest amount of youth coming through. Lacewood Terminal is beside Halifax West terminal, so we see big crowds coming through when school gets out or going in. And then the Dartmouth Bridge Terminal, for Halifax Transit, the Dartmouth Bridge Terminal is our largest terminal and our largest transfer point, so it's a natural gathering area. And then with Dartmouth High directly behind it and the Zatzman Sportsplex just on the other side, it's a natural gathering area.
Okay, thanks. And just to be clear, I didn't mean to imply that having the passes was a bad thing. Obviously, we want to build a culture of transit use amongst the youth, so having the passes is a good thing. That addresses one question. And then my last question, I guess, is to the chiefs. So Chief McLean, you confirmed there's no plan to have police officers on the buses as a matter of routine. I guess I would just float it out there, not getting to the operational side of things, but floating out there as Commissioner Mancini's suggested. I think it might be worthwhile to have maybe the extra duty officer who's at the terminal actually get on the bus from time to time. It kind of jives with the idea of the 15 or 20-minute policing that, you don't have to do it too frequently, but just the idea that it is known out there that there are police on buses that may have some deterrent value and just to be visible. Like, it doesn't have to be a very routine or regular thing, but just the fact that it happens on occasion, the fact that there'll be riders who see the police aboard may be helpful. Other jurisdictions have used police on buses to actually do other enforcement, like distracted driving, watching for people who are on their cell phones whilst they're driving, and they're able to call that ahead and kind of do extra duty or double duty, being eyes on the bus as well as eyes on the road. So anyway, just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Hinch.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you for the report. So I am a transit user. I am a rider. I've always rode in the bus. I have a visual impairment, so therefore I cannot drive. So I do take transit. Over the years, I have seen many changes where, in fact, that I find it unnerving to get on a bus at times, where I will actually walk before I take the transit because of the fact that I've seen so many different incidents that have happened over the years. When when it came to the shields being put up, that was because of the, excuse me here, because of the pandemic. Thank you. Due to the pandemic, and I seen a lot of things that happened during that time, during with even the, the operators, want to be very engaging with passengers, and I've seen it come in like as recently as maybe last couple of weeks when I took the bus. Very little engagement, very little, and I understand the reason why. I mean, their safety and everything, but I'm just trying to understand, like, is there any type of training when it comes to engaging with passengers? What they're going through. I mean, even their mental health. I mean, I know there's a lot of things that are going on nowadays that, that are quite alarming and quite concerning, especially with the pandemic, with the homelessness. So I'm just wondering if is there any type of engagement or training going on?
So I think to address the original question or statement, originally during the COVID pandemic, plexiglass barriers or shields were placed on the buses just to, give that piece of safety there, as to try to help slow down and the transmission of COVID. The shields that are on the bus now are specifically security design shields. They're locking. It is a unfortunate norm in the transit industry now, specifically in North America. A lot of that work has escalated and come from increasing incidents involving the operators and passengers. So the shields that we do have today on our conventional buses are meant as a security barrier, as well as a longer term barrier, again, for helping whether be COVID or other pieces. The operators themselves, they come into a 6-week plus a week of mentoring training with Halifax Transit. The training focuses on customer service every day. It's part of a nationally recognized training program through the Canadian Urban Transit Association called the Ambassador Training. And then other parts of that training are on driving and the routes and things like that. But the customer service part is a large part of what the training they do receive is. And that's part of the training that we focus with these service supervisors on to around de-escalation and providing that customer service. As we go forward in the very near future, we're going to have an RFP release specifically looking at accessibility and the Accessibus service, but accessibility as a whole, to further engage and look at how we're interacting, with people via policy and service throughout Halifax Transit.
Okay. So when it comes to our children, our kids that are taking the buses nowadays, like I can remember, like when I was a kid and I got on the bus, if we got a little rowdy or whatever, the bus driver would calm down, sit down, settle down, even a little holler, like settle down. Like, and we wanted to get to where we wanted to get to, so we settled down. So I don't know what the kids nowadays, I don't know what's in their cereal, but I mean, it's a totally different type of breed nowadays, and I can understand that can wear on somebody's mental health. So I'm trying to figure out, how are the bus drivers dealing with that? When it comes to rudely behavior, unruly.
As you mentioned, I think from a societal perspective, we are dealing with different challenges today than we have in the past. As we get up to speed on the number of operators that we need, very, very tough role to fill today, and again, that's an industry thing, not just a Halifax thing. Whether it's Halifax Transit or somewhere in Vancouver, Edmonton, Ottawa, somewhere between, we're all struggling to fill those roles and working on providing, those supports in place for the operator. HRM is has our employee support or our employee support program in place. That we do. We have supervisors in place that support those pieces, but for the operators being involved and having the continuation of our ongoing safety program and safety plan, it's a large piece on how we're doing it. Again, different environment. The assaults on operators have gone up over the years, so operators are pulling back, but that's the intent of us increasing the supervision that we do have on the road and at the terminals. One of the other things we did with our mobile supervisor group and terminal supervisor group, we went through a uniform change this year with a lot of high vis attachments and lightened up the coloring of the uniform to make sure that they're more recognizable and easier to spot when they're out there, so the operators know when they see them, who they are and what they can do, and having them on shift to be there for those supports. And then we do everything we can to support the operators through that, through the safety plan, through budget request to council, and our continuing work with our partners in public safety and specifically HRP and RCMP. They've been absolutely great in the support they've provided. I think the extra duty officer, there's nights I'm sure they've got 20,000 steps on just being out there and being out there with our staff and really interacting with people. Someone mentioned earlier about the impact it's having. I've been approached. I like to be out in the terminals and the buses myself, and I've been approached just about having the difference of having the supervisors on site, in a easily recognizable and seen uniform. But the positive comments about our partners in HRP having somebody on site and being there and available to help, not just support from a transit perspective, but from a policing perspective as well.
One more question. Is that okay? Just one more? Sure. Thank you.
Commissioner Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks everyone for your answers so far. These kinds of numbers are alarming for me. I have been on the end of many calls from transit operators and around the safety aspect, and it was much higher, of course, during COVID, and we addressed those, and I can imagine that we are getting an uptick on the numbers as well because of the supervisors out there, and they're acknowledging the data in a way, or the incidents in a way that maybe the others wouldn't, our operators. I still have concerns around whether or not we have the right mix of alternative models to having police officers there, even in their off duty. It's our job here to approve resource budget requests every year for our service. And we have a responsibility to make sure that we are looking at the health and availability of the members who are active, who are with police. And every time we have situations where really the police are the go-to authority to come and be involved in transit, we are then tasking those members who might otherwise have a chance to have a rest or do something fun that is not off-duty extra work. So that's our responsibility on this end. Like when we talk about and ask and look at the numbers, ultimately council and who 3 members are part of council, we have to wear the hat then of making sure that transit has everything that they need. And I think I've had a chance to talk with our with Robin, who is our new executive director. That's right. Because Patricia Hughes now is our director. Yeah. Okay. So, and Robin comes from a very skilled and experienced work that he's done in other cities around alternative models and thinking outside the box. I think that's the piece that I remember very clearly in the conversation that we had. And I perhaps, Robin, if you wanted to introduce yourself and speak to if there are any other models that we should be looking at and thinking about. We have been tasked through our public safety folks. Rachel, maybe there you'd want to comment on something there as well, to look at alternative models of service delivery where the police are being called in when in fact that's not core policing duties, that we'd like to see them have the capacity to do in a healthier state and in a responsive state. They're doing the best they can, but every time we pull them away from their core services, then that's depleting and undermining what we should be delivering. So I'm just wondering, have we, and are we, and I say we right now as a counselor, and that's one of the things that we do as members of this board, where we have to consistently shift our hats, although you don't even see it. We're in our heads, we have to shift it. But this question around alternative models is very clearly sits here as well. So it's a combination of both. But if you could offer some insight on if maybe there's some other jurisdictions that are doing some other things.
Thank you, Commissioner Kent, for the kind words. My name is Robin Garris. I'm the not so new executive director at the Halifax Transit. For those who don't know me, I worked for TTC in Toronto for 36 years. And then I got a second opportunity to work for the fine city of Guelph for another 9 years as the general manager of transit. And now I'm here, privileged to be working with Halifax and the wonderful management team and the unions that I have here. In terms of the overall picture, one of the things that I noticed when I first came to Halifax was not only the opportunities that we have, but you may have heard, I didn't bring my car, I take the bus. I've experienced some of the stressful situations on the buses. I've walked away a few times. I've called for assistance a few times myself. I've been there, done that. I've seen it happen. So incidents on transit vehicles and transit properties is not new or unique to Halifax. TTC at a much larger stream has a lot of incidents that take place there, but over in North America, one of the conversations that we often have at the Canadian Urban Transit Association conferences and or the APTA conferences in the United States is how best to have yourself set up for success in terms of these kinds of incidents. When I first came here, I started talking to my management team, specifically Phil, who was involved with a transit security plan for us in the past, and our discussions about how to revamp some of the positive aspects of that plan to make sure that we're moving in the right direction. Of course, we talk about de-escalation. We want to make sure we de-escalate as much as we can, but there's often times when you're put in a position where things happen and you can't just de-escalate. You have to work through that problem and then have the conversations afterwards on how to make it better. But one of the things that we've started since I've been here, and it was happened in the past, but I'm asking for it to happen more often, is better relationship building with the RCMP, with Halifax Police, with Commissioner Moore's office, to see what alternatives are there. I always often talk about outside the box or outside the coloring line objectives on what we can do for our customers, for our employees. And there are things that we can do. We can talk more often. We can meet more often. We can be in position more often to support. There's a lot of training that goes with it, whether it's de-escalation training, mental health training, just communications training. I heard some comments earlier about the fact that transit operators, they don't talk to their customers as much as they did in the old days when I took the bus. We used to know our bus drivers' names. We always said hi to them every morning, whether it was a school bus or a transit bus. Oftentimes, our operators are concentrating on keeping the bus moving safely from point A to point B without being distracted. It's very important to them now. And the barriers may have caused a little bit of an outcome where they don't have that closeness that they used to. But we have to find that common ground, where we can do our job, address our customers the best that we can. But one of the things that I think is important is being seen, getting our management teams out, our supervisors in positions where we can see them, where the customers can see them. I know I often talk to whether it's a single mother with a child or older people that are at transit hubs, transit routes that have questions they want to ask. They don't know who to ask. They don't see anybody. But when they see somebody with a uniform that says they're transit supervisor, they feel safer, and they know that they have somebody that they can trust and talk to. So having people at our terminals, having our supervisors visible, having myself out there, my management team, and great communications with the police, I think is the first step that we need to take while we look at the opportunities that we can move forward with in terms of the corrections, because transit incidents are increasing, not just here, they're increasing everywhere. And coming out of COVID, we noticed that it's continuing, and we have to make sure that we prepare ourselves to address those situations. If I can, I'm going to let Phil, if he's comfortable, just talk a little bit about the safety plan discussions that we've had. He knows a little bit more about the finer details that might be helpful for this conversation. But thank you.
Thank you. So I returned to Halifax Transit in 2022 after 8 years in Alberta with the City of Edmonton and Edmonton Transit, 6th, 7th largest property in the country. So I also bring a different variety of models. In our Edmonton model, we had peace officers, bylaws, and things like that already in place. Same with the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo. So like a Robin, not quite the years. But like Robin, I have experience in other places brought back. So as per the council report that went through in 2023, which was the creation and adoption of the T1200, the Halifax Transit bylaw, specifically looking at those pieces, the additional service supervisors and terminal supervisors on the road, the uniform change, we also put forward a plan to council, which included specifically peace officers focused on transit and then the support staff around that. At the time in 2023, when that report went through, the time then was a best level guesstimate of 18. Things like that, working with the Commissioner Moore and his team, specifically around the report everyone here was discussing earlier, and the availability for tiered policing in Nova Scotia has been a bit of a tie in the conversation here. Working in Alberta, all of those things were in place. So that's part of the conversation that's ongoing and the work that we're doing now with the Canadian Urban Transit Association, with the work that they're doing. And it's work that we're continuing. So from an alternative model perspective, we're looking at what a lot of other major transit properties do, and that's to have supervisors on the road, which we have today, that focus on the service and customer service, and then another part that will touch on through tiered policing or other pieces, what the enforcement was. The message I delivered to council in 2023 is it's not all about enforcement, which is a piece that's really changed in the transit industry in the last few years. And I was lucky enough working for the City of Edmonton to be part of that transition. What I said to council in 23 was support, enforcement if necessary, support for our staff, support for residents and clients, support for the service, and then if we get there. So following models that are, say, in Vancouver, the Vancouver Transit Police has another officer program in place called Community Safety Officers. They address and they attend a lot of different types of issues, allowing the police to actually focus on some of those higher pieces. So it's part of the work that we're doing and ongoing. We have stakeholder engagements actually coming up in the next few months to have those conversations on the street, and as we work to refine the plan, what it looks like. Looking forward to more conversations with Commissioner Moore and what's going to happen here around the availability for that in the province of Nova Scotia. It is a little I'm not sure if limiting is the right word, but a little bit of a challenge to overcome here. And modeling after what we're seeing in cities like Calgary, where they've really focused on the public safety side of things, and having the support polices in place, not only for transit, but parks and a lot of those other things. So we are looking at, alternative models, but we'll continue that work and continue our partnership with public safety and our policing partners.
Thank you. Commissioner Moore, did you have a comment or point of clarification?
Thank you, Chair. Just Phil touched on it. I think we had a very good discussion last week, just talking about the intersection of layered policing and what does that mean in the framework. So I think the unknown of that right now is probably not going to get a lot of us in front of budget this year, but certainly give us lots of energy to be able to look at that over the next little while to figure out what the right level of resources, because it isn't just about enforcement, and there are other pieces that can be brought to bear on the issue as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And just a reminder, this is about an information report. We're not trying to, we can't solve this topic today, but it's been a very good exchange of ideas. Commissioner Hitch, did you have one final point or clarification?
I have one question. So just because I have transit in the room right now, I was really wanting to know about, because especially as a counselor in District 8, we have difficulties with folks in actual shelters where people are using in these particular shelters in the North End. And I'm wondering if you guys are aware of this and if there's anything that you are trying to address. The bus shelters. Whereas
I'm wondering if that question could be taken offline and we could kind of explore that outside the framework of this presentation. Would you be amenable to that?
we can do that.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
I just want to squeeze one little question in. When I look at the data and you talk about physical incidents and how you define the definition and verbal incidents, is there any categorization of people who might be going through a mental health crisis that's being captured in this number, but it's not being reported in that manner?
The data presented today was specifically to answer the motion and the question that have been put forward around violence. Transit does have further data, and we use our partners in public safety, in community safety and public safety, and some of the supports they have in place to bring to bear other resources when we do encounter folks that are having other challenges that we do feel police may not be the first response. So we do have some support areas again from community safety that do look at a few of those things.
I guess the question though was, does this data contain those incidents or not?
It does if they were escalated to a place of violence where we had requested HRP or other emergency service supports.
Do you break that data down any further?
Not in the data that was presented here
No,
today.
I realize that, but do you have the data to break that down further?
Probably
Possibly?
slightly, yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all. All right, I think we're going to move on to item 9.2. Thank you kindly. That is Commissioner Mancini's request to bring back the interim update on HRP use of the RCMP's H Divisional's Sectional Assault Investigative Review Committee process. So just a reminder, back in June of last year, the board adopted a policy to pilot the RCMP's SARC process. That pilot's still underway. I think scheduled to wrap up in the new calendar year, and we'll get a full report on that, but we're looking for an interim update. Thank you. I don't know where everybody's disappearing to. Hold on one sec.
Yeah.
There we go. I think we're ready. Commissioner Moore had a quick little call he had to step out to, but all the commissioners are here.
So Chair, We have Superintendent Dave Boone, who's the officer in charge of the Criminal Investigation Division. He'll be presenting the presentation.
Thank you.
Good
Superintendent.
afternoon, everybody. As Chief said, Dave Boone, Superintendent and the officer in charge of our Integrated Criminal Investigation Division. And today was an interim update on the HRP's participation in the RCMP SARC program, the Sexual Assault Investigations Review Committee. A little background: in December of 2024, the board directed the Chief of HRP to participate in the RCMP H Division SARC process for a period of 12 months. At the Board of Police Commissioners meeting in May of 2025, commissioners requested an interim 6-month staff report evaluating the performance to date and the use of the SARC process. From that, there were 4 specific requests to bring forward today. How many files have been reviewed through SARC since the process inception? How many reviewed files have resulted in additional investigation actions as opposed to clerical changes? How many investigations have been reopened as a result of the review? And whether any reopened cases have resulted in a charge being laid. A little background on the Sexual Assault Investigative Team, or the SAIT team. We all know that sexualized violence is one of the most underreported types of crime. The Integrated Sexual Assault Investigative Team investigates child and sexual assaults and child physical abuses within HRM. SAIT is a unit within the Special Victims section of the Integrated Investigation Division, and is comprised of members of HRP and RCMP, HRD, who are all trained and qualified specialists in this field. Current staffing levels are 2 sergeants, 1 RCMP, 1 HRP, and 15 investigators. In recent years, the SAIT team has focused on training, education, and strengthening relationships with partner agencies to improve the overall response to sexual assault investigations. Some of the supports offered prior to conducting an interview with a survivor of sexual assault. SAIT investigators will offer to connect adult survivors with victim services and the Independent Legal Advice Program, which provides free independent legal advice to adult survivors of sexual assault. All interviews with adult survivors take place in soft interview rooms, a little more well-furnished than a regular interview room, where access to additional information on support services. And this is also supplied on the front end of investigation through e-pamphlets or emailed information. Prior to SAIT interviewing a child in relation to a sexual assault investigation, the CSTAR program will be offered. This program, CSTAR, brings together professionals from law enforcement, child welfare, healthcare, mental health, and the justice system to create an integrated approach to the investigation, assessment, and treatment of suspected violence or abuse. SAIT investigators will often interview a child at the CSTAR office, which is designed specifically for children and youth. And I believe that's at the IWK. A little background on the SARC formation. Sexual assault investigations have been the subject of increased public scrutiny over the past several years. In response, the RCMP began having these reviews, which were cleared without charges, so files that are closed by the police investigators without a charge laid, to ensure that appropriate steps were taken. This review was conducted by a Sexual Assault Investigative Review Committee, or the SARC. The goal is to provide investigative oversight to ensure investigations are thoroughly, timely, impartial, and properly classified, as well as to identify any systemic gaps or barriers. To date, SARCs have been established in 12 RCMP divisions across Canada. There's 1 in every contract division and 2 in British Columbia, with the province of BC currently in the process of implementing a 3rd. Each SARC meets 2 to 4 times a year to review the sexual assault investigations. The one in HDiv and the one we participate in is 3 times a year. SARCs are comprised of provincial independent subject matter experts across government and non-governmental organizations, all of whom are required to sign non-disclosure agreements. Investigations are selected at random to each SARC meeting, with the unvetted file securely and completely prepared and transferred. The SARC member has access to any audio or video of the interviews, which were completed during the investigation, officer notes, reports, and monitor notes associated to the file. No sexual assault investigations are excluded from being selected from review, including those involving children. Each SARC committee member receives one file that they review individually and in depth against an agreed set upon set of standards, which is a form that they go through while reviewing the investigation. Following the review, the SARC may find that the investigation was completed in accordance with best practice, or they may make recommendations, including but not limited to, that the investigation be reopened for additional investigation, steps to be taken, or that the investigating officer to receive some feedback. In December of 2019, SARC was established here in H Division. Until recently, the sexual assault investigations conducted by RCMP HRD members were not being reviewed by SARC, only files outside of HRM. Reason for that is the SAIT files come to the Integrated Criminal Investigation Division. Backstory on our involvement in preparation for HRP participating in the SARC process. We had 3 analysts in Ottawa, RCMP analysts, that were given access to Versadex. They're the analysts that mine at random the files that were closed without charge, and then they're prepared and submitted to the SARC for review. HRP was initially scheduled to participate in our first SARC review on September 24 with 5 files, but that session was canceled because our supporting reviewers didn't make it to the meeting, or there wasn't enough to make a fulsome meeting. To date, HRP and the Integrated Criminal Investigation Division has participated in 3 meetings, December 2nd and 3rd of 24, May 12th and 13th of 25, and most recently September 3rd and 4th of 2025. To date, we've had 21 SAIT files reviewed through the process. 3 were reviewed in December of 24, 8 files were reviewed in May, and 10 files were reviewed in September. And that was by design. We came in with a graduated process so we wouldn't overwhelm the existing SARC system to see what could be handled effectively. And now we're up to 10 files. To date, no files have been reopened. No additional investigative actions have been identified as a result of feedback received from the first 2 SARC meetings. I haven't received feedback from the most recent one at the beginning of September. I'm waiting on that. Several of the files which were reviewed related to either historical complaints or cases where the victim did not wish to proceed with the investigation. Overall, there's been consistent feedback provided by SARC members that the interviews are conducted with survivors are positive and that the interview space is appropriate. In one of the reviewed files, it was noted that the investigator should be more cognizant of their body language. This was addressed. This was nothing conscious by the investigator. Just during the course of the interview, the way the investigator was seated brought back some memories of the survivor while they were recounting an incident. But still a good teaching point for the investigators to be cognizant of that moving forward. Next step, the next SARC is scheduled for December 8th and 9th of this year, where we again have 10 files expected to be reviewed. At the direction of the board, HRP is currently participating in the SARC process for a trial period of 12 months, which will bring us to December of 25, and scheduled back here with a report and recommendation for continued participation in February 26. That's it for the presentations, if there's any questions.
Thank you. Maybe I could ask just one clarification question. On slide 6, where you said the SARC members Maybe you could bring back slide 6.
I can try. I might need my tech support.
Right. So is the methodology that each SAIRC committee member reviews one file and not the team reviews the file together?
One person, one file.
Interesting.
So you
Okay.
you could conceivably have 10 files with 10 with 10 review members, and they're each doing a file at the same time.
Sorry, can you say that again?
They're having their own individual file, yes. So
Yes.
one review member reviews one file and then puts their comments on the review sheet.
And then does it move to the next
No.
member? No, only one member reviews it.
Correct.
And are all members of the SAIRC committee not members of SAIT?
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
No. Remember, I don't have the exact makeup of the SARC, but there could be community advocate groups, could be Crown, members of the Public Prosecution Service, but subject matter experts within that field that have an interest.
Right, but there's not officers reviewing their own work.
No.
Right, okay, thank you. Commissioners, Commissioner Bezic-Escanlar.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for all the work put into this. It's reassuring to know that the cases were looked at and nothing that required reopening was found there. Just to give me a sense of how many files were reviewed out of the total, can you give me a sense of how many files would have actually occurred during this time frame that would have not led to charge? Just as a ballpark, to understand how many of the 21 or what proportion were actually looked at.
Not specifically to your question. Coming in today in 2025 to date, we've had about 330 total files brought intake.
Okay.
And in 2024 was in and around 460. I don't have the breakdown of how many of those were not cleared by charge.
Sorry, what was that number again? Could you repeat those numbers again?
To date, roughly 330. And 2024 was roughly 460.
Thank you.
And second question, I'm just thinking out loud. I'm wondering if there would be more utility at looking at you said the files, several of the files out of the 21 related to where the victim didn't want to proceed with an investigation. And maybe I'm missing something in the process, but I'm wondering if it might be more useful or more relevant to be looking at cases where the victim did want to proceed and for whatever reason it didn't proceed, and to have those ones reviewed mainly, as opposed to the ones where the victim didn't want to proceed at all. And there might be some legal thing, maybe it's because it's a pro-charge situation or something I might not be missing.
It's just the way the file is closed. So it's closed without a charge. So there could be multiple reasons why it's closed without a charge. To your point, one of them being survivor didn't want to continue with the investigation. It's just pulled randomly from the analysts how it's closed without a charge.
Okay.
So the point I was going to add, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we have any say over what files they actually audit. They're
No, it's-
randomly selected through a third part, like as you said.
Yeah, and that makes good sense. Like I said, I was just wondering if from the perspective of, I guess, quality assurance, I'm wondering if the files where the survivor did want to proceed with charge might be the ones that we're actually more interested in looking at, because there may be multiple reasons why I didn't proceed, and that might be what we would want the second look at. But anyway, I'll stop there. I was just thinking out loud. Thanks.
Commissioner Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I want to thank you and everyone involved, both from RCMP and HRP, that are investigating intimate partner violence. The reason that I asked for this report, this interim report, is because the Premier has declared, as he should, that we are in a crisis when it comes to intimate partner violence. And this model is new for HRP, and I know it's the model that RCMP have been using nationally. I'm not here to criticize. I'm not here to challenge. I'm not here to point fingers. I'm looking, when you state that it's the most unreported crime that takes place is concerning in the middle of a crisis. And I think as our job as a Board of Police Commission is to continue to talk about this topic and raise it. And, when we see the presentations from both our police forces, we see it as a priority. I find it concerning that 21 files were reviewed, and I realize that they're randomly chosen by third party, as the chief just mentioned, but no files reopened, no additional investigation actions, discussion about someone's body language. I find this rather concerning. And I don't know how we come to the number of 21, how they choose those files. Other models look at all files. I just find this rather concerning. This is where we are. I realize it's a short period of time. I understand that. And again, I'm not here to point finger or to try to throw the bus at anybody, throw anybody under the bus. I just look at, we're in this crisis. And I really think, like, if you're looking at a sporting team that wins a championship, they look at how to do it better. So I'm very surprised that there was no reinvestigation of actions, no files reopened. It just raises a flag for me. And so it tells me that, in my opinion, and I'm not an expert in this stuff, you guys are the experts, that there's got to be a way to get better at what we're doing. And the idea of this review is to get better at what we're doing. So there's no questions here. I just share that concern. And I will continue, as long as I'm on this Board of Police Commission and in council, to continue to talk about intimate violence in our community, because we have to get better at this from a policing and from a municipality point of view. And that also means supporting police if they need more to get better at this. But I think I'm just really surprised that no files have been reopened or no additional investigations. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I just want to make one comment. The SART review and the ones that are similar like it are not about inter-apartment violence. This is not an intimate partner violence program. This is a sexual assault review program, which is different.
But there are intimate partner violence.
No, there could be. Very well could be. But in a
Yeah.
big circle, little circle,
I understand.
intimate
Chief.
partner violence, and I'll speak to some of our numbers here later.
Okay.
This is not what we're talking about. That's a separate issue. That's a separate concern. Dave's right in terms of, we know that both intimate partner violence and sexual assault files are vastly underreported across the board. But I just want to
No, I appreciate that.
clarify in terms of that we're not talking about intimate partner violence files when this program's being
But this-
discussed.
The possibility of those files being part of here. It's not solely intimate partner violence. You're saying,
What's that? I'm saying they're sexual assault files.
Yeah.
They're files that come in as reported sexual assaults.
thank you, Chief.
Commissioner Hinch.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. So my question is, with the ones that you have, with the 21 files, were there any that were unreachable? No address, no numbers, or anything of that nature? Did that come into play?
I don't recall. I've read through all the 21 reviews. I'm just trying to think. I would suggest, from my memory, that there was an initial report, there was initial interaction between the police, the investigator, and the survivor.
Mhm.
It's possible that there was no other contact after that when the police have reached out, but I can't answer that question 100% today. I can review those and get back to you on that for sure.
But I also want to specify, the reviewers aren't reaching out to the survivors.
They're not. Okay.
No.
No, the reviewers are reviewing the file.
Just reviewing the file.
So the interviews, the reports, the same that any review would undertake. It's the material that's presented to them for them to make a determination, was this matter investigated properly? Of which, against a set criteria which the RCMP have established since, well, when was it? 2019 across the country, against a set, and it's kind of going down the field. But it's not about reaching back to folk and like the reviewers, like it wouldn't be appropriate for the reviewer, whoever that may be, to call up you and say, hey, how did, that's not what this is.
So it's not a follow-up or anything?
It's not, no, it's a file review. It's a review of the file that has been established, including all the interviews, as he said, the interviews, the monitor notes, the police reports, the evidence, everything that's in front of the police officer to make a determination on this file going forward. They are in receipt of it. If I'm wrong, tell me I am.
Oh, you're right, Chief.
I haven't worked in that field in quite some time.
Mhm.
But yeah, I just want to be clear in terms of not so much what it is, but definitely what it isn't.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions? Okay. I just would like to say I find it confusing that the term committee is used in it when it's not really a committee-based approach. It's a single individual, single file, single individual. There seems to be a group of people assigned to do this work. So it makes me surprised you'd have to cancel a meeting when files are being reviewed individually anyway. It just seems
But
a
do
little
they all come
strange.
together at once?
They convene as a group of, let's say, I don't know the exact number. Say it's a group of 15. On day one, everybody gets one file each, so there's 15 files being reviewed because there's 15 review members within the committee. I could have one file that's not very substantive in the notes or the report or the interviews to be reviewed, and I could be done in much less of a period of time than the next person who's got a lengthier file that's more in depth. That may take hours and hours. So while that one person within the committee is reviewing one larger file, it's possible I could have two smaller files and review two in the same time as the one. But yes, it's a meeting of a group, but then each member of that committee gets assigned one file to review at a time. And over a 2-day period, depending on the in-depth or the complexity of the files, that dictates how many we can get through.
So do they come back to the committee and present their findings to the group?
No, they're
No.
documented and then they're sent back to their respective
Okay.
unit.
All right. And then the skill set of each member of the group is different, correct? So the lens that each reviewer would look at a file is going to be from a different perspective.
I would think, yes.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. I think we should take a 10-minute break and reconvene at 3:00, and we'll come back and do topic 9.3. If everybody's amenable. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. We're moving on to item 9.3, which is a information report requested by Commissioner Hinch, which is HRM's police use of emergency alerts. All right, we have as speakers Superintendent Greg Robertson, as well as Inspector Jeff Mitchell. Gentlemen, take it away.
Still don't have it.
Just going to wait for it to come up there, Chair. All good. Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. Before I get into this, this is the presentation is an abbreviated version of the comprehensive report that you all have in your packages. Just want to let you know that. And behind that, I just should say, acknowledge the people behind the scenes that are putting the good work in, the analysts who are building these reports for the board and all the stats. I certainly don't have the ability to do that. A couple of them are in this room, Joanne Smith and Natasha Pace, and of course, communications teams as well that are behind putting this together. Just a brief overview of how we're here speaking about this today. Back in June, the board directed both agencies to prepare a staff report outlining policies governing the use of emergency and public alerts. Specifically, the number and nature of incidents for which alerts were issued in the past 24 months, and the number and general nature of incidents in the past 24 months where an alert could have been issued in keeping with governing policies, but was not. I'll start the presentation. Superintendent Robertson, my colleague, will jump in after when we get to the HRP's portion. As you're probably aware, the Alert Ready is Canada's emergency alerting system and has been operationally nationally since March of 2018. The Alert Ready delivers critical and potentially life-saving alerts to Canadians through television, radio, and LTE connected and compatible wireless devices. The important thing to note about Alert Ready is it does not require subscription, so there is no opt-in. It's a distinctive alert tone which cannot be shut off. Public alerts issued through the Alert Ready system are intended for the most serious and time-critical emergencies, soliciting the public's attention and to provide some type of direction to the public. For instance, be on the lookout for, shelter in place, or evacuate. Alert Ready is intended to provide warnings, threats including but not limited to urban fires that threaten multiple properties, natural disasters such as tornadoes, biological, chemical, nuclear, radiological threats, environmental emergencies, terrorist attacks, and civil emergencies such as public safety emergencies, i.e. Amber Alerts or disruption of 911 services. That bottom one is important to remember. So police activated alerts. It's important to remember that the police have only have the ability to send certain types of alerts. Police activated alerts includes emergent or ongoing incidents that may put the public in direct harm, and they can include emergent firearm and weapons related offenses, active shooter or immediate action rapid deployment incidents, terrorist attacks, chemical, biological, radiological, or nuclear and explosive incidents with an established criminal nexus, civil disobedience and rioting, and dangerous animal incidents. So to sum it up, we do not have the ability to send a fire-related alert or a flood-related alert. All 13 provinces and territories are connected to the Alert Ready system within each jurisdiction responsible for issuing alerts. Only authorized government agencies can issue alerts through the Alert Ready system. In July 2021, Halifax Regional Police and the Nova Scotia RCMP were given direct access to the Alert Ready system. Prior to that, only the Department of Emergency Management had access to the Alert Ready system. Currently, HRP and the Nova Scotia RCMP and the Department of Emergency Management are the only organizations authorized to issue an alert through the Alert Ready system in Nova Scotia. HRP and the RCMP have direct access to an Alert Ready system. So essentially what that means is there are a number of authorized users that can log into the Alert Ready system and send an alert directly from both agencies. I'd like to turn it over now to Superintendent Robertson.
Thank you, Inspector Mitchell, and good afternoon. So HRP's policy on Alert Ready, we had direct access, as Inspector Mitchell mentioned, in 2021. So our policy was issued on July 5th, 2021. The policies align with provincial and federal policies and regulations relating to the Alert Ready system. So of note, there's a provincial working group that's made up of RCMP, HRP, some other municipal town chiefs, and as well, there's a Canadian Chiefs of Police Association. There's a committee called Emergency Management and a subcommittee on public alerting. So I belong to that. There's RCMP local representation as well. So with that, we based our policy on the national standards and the provincial use of the Alert Ready system. So the policy does establish roles and responsibilities and procedures related to HRP's use of the Alert Ready National Public Alerting System, and it includes that authorization for any alert ready message must come from the chief of police or their designate, so the deputy chief, the superintendent. And within your package, there's a process flow chart, and it shows from the beginning of a call for service where we would consider the use of an alert and how that information is fed up through a chain of command to the duty officer, to the deputy or the chief of police. That's through one method, direct issue. There's a secondary method if the direct issue method fails, and that secondary method is the traditional method prior to 2021, where we would be going through Nova Scotia Department of Emergency Management. Only HRP staff who have been designated as authorized alert issuers and who have been trained to use the Alert Ready system issue public alerts. So basically, they're the ones on their laptop, and this can be done anywhere you have connectivity. They type in what has been agreed upon through the process flow chart, leading up to corporate comms weighing in as to what that message is. What are we directing the public to do? And we have in HRP all of the dispatch supervisors, including the quality assurance supervisor, myself, and the emergency management coordinator. So 11 of our staff are able to issue these alerts. The pre-approved message content is available to authorized alert issuers and for use within the public alert system. So HRP's use of Alert Ready since gaining direct access to the Alert Ready system in 2021, HRP has issued 2 alerts, both within the last 24 hours. So the first one was a non-broadcast intrusive alert. So that alert went to everything but your cellular device, and it can be amplified further by radio channels and TV channels at their choosing. But basically this one here didn't meet the threshold to have it activated on your cellular device. And it was in relation to a vulnerable 16-year-old nonverbal youth who was reported missing from a local shopping center. The youth got away from their guardian. And because of the alert, the youth was quickly located and found. So that was proved to be successful. The second alert was April 30th of 2024, and this involved information with regards to a gentleman who was believed to have access to firearms and made certain comments that they may go into the community and cause harm with that firearm. That was a broadcast intrusive alert, so your cell phone would have went off for that one. Following that investigation, the suspect was arrested the following day and charged in connection to that incident. So the Alert Ready criteria, HRP officers are dispatched approximately to 100,000 calls for service a year during the course of any critical incident. HRP would consider whether issuing of an alert would benefit the unfolding situation. So what that looks like on the ground is responding officers get to the scene. Incoming information is given to those officers through the dispatch center. Members of the public are calling in. That information is assessed by a road sergeant, fed up to the watch commander. The watch commander would come to anyone else on the senior leadership team. Maybe it's a duty officer. If it's after hours during daytime, it could be the patrol superintendent or myself, because this Alert Ready criteria falls under the support services superintendent position. So there would be a conversation as to, does the unfolding incident warrant the use of the system, of the Alert Ready system? And there's lots of factors that go into making that decision. So some of them are, there is an active threat, immediate action, rapid deployment, known as IARD incident. And the circumstances are believed to cause potential imminent threat to the public or serious bodily harm, including death. As well, there's sufficient descriptive detail and information of the threat and that geographical location involved to provide clear direction and guidance to the public. As well, the issuance of the public alert would not place the public and or the responding emergency personnel at greater risk than had we not issued it. So in other words, if we know who the suspect is and we've already made arrangements and efforts to get to a location that we believe that person's at, using the alert to let that person know, whose cell phone also would go off, that we're on our way is probably not a good use of the alert system. So there's many different factors to weigh whether or not we would use the alert system for somebody who is deemed dangerous. So as noted, the criteria, there needs to be sufficient detail and information about a threat and its location prior to issuing an alert through the Alert Ready system, something that is often difficult in an unfolding situation. There is no data available from HRP to reflect the number of times an alert was considered but not issued. So in other words, what I previously described, how the chain of command works on the ground with frontline responding officers to their road sergeants and to the watch commander and so on. Conversations are had on critical incidents where weapon or potential harm to the public is a factor. We do have the conversations. We just can't really provide the data the way the question is phrased. So in situations where an alert was not issued, other communication tools may have been used to assist police. The traditional means that we always use through corporate comms or the watch commander after hours, such as media releases and social media posts. So 2 incidents that I mentioned that happened in the last 24 hours. The first one was June 26th of 2025. There's a weapons call on Gottingen Street where shots were fired. There were no reported injuries. During that incident, officers were quickly able to locate the vehicle and the suspects involved. This incident was believed to be contained. An alert ready message was not issued, so it didn't really follow the protocols we have in place, nor did it follow national standards for the use of the alert system. Another one was the weapons call at Mount St. University. There was lots of discussion on that. That was May 29 of 2025. Information on that one wasn't specific enough to warrant the issuing of an alert. A lot of confusion when officers got there trying to find out exactly what was going on. Officers did determine that there was no threat. There was no information about somebody having a weapon. It was more or less an unhoused person on the ground. So at best, we were looking at a robbery and it didn't warrant the use of an alert. And then the last one was July 27 of 2024, the shooting incident at the Africville National Historic Site. Shots were fired while hundreds of people were gathered to celebrate the 41st annual Africville reunion. 5 people were injured. Police were able to quickly determine that this was an isolated incident and it was contained. An alert was not issued as there was no indication of any potential for further harm to the community outside the original incident. Back to you.
Thanks, Greg. On the RCMP HRD side, we're guided by the Nova Scotia RCMP or H Division policies when it comes to serious incidents alerts. If at any time an incident poses imminent risk to the public, and that's more or less the threshold, is there an imminent risk to the public at this time? RCMP H Division may issue a serious incident alert via the Alert Ready system. The division may also use other communication tools, as Greg referred to inform the public updates and the public about an incident. Those tools include social media channels, the RCMP NS website, and interactions with the media. As per the Nova Scotia RCMP policy, a serious incident alert can only be activated, canceled by those who have the delegated authority. In the last 24 months, provincially, the RCMP has issued 12 alerts in the province of Nova Scotia. 2 of those 12 alerts were sent province-wide. So a person issuing these alerts can extend the scope of their map when they're issuing an alert. HRM by nature would have received those alerts because the scope was close enough to HRM that you would have received those alerts, but they were not the original requester in those alerts. The following 2 alerts were issued on behalf of RCMP HRD, so within Halifax. On March the 2nd, 2023, a dangerous persons alert went out for a man who allegedly was armed with a knife in Cole Harbour. The man was subsequently later taken into custody. And in October 30th, 2023, another dangerous persons alert was issued also in Cole Harbour. That came from the result of a file involving a Good Samaritan who was rendering assistance to a woman who was being held against her will. As a result of that alert, the vehicle and suspect were located at a nearby residence. Suspect was taken into custody. Much like Superintendent Robertson said, there is no data available from the RCMP to reflect the number of times an alert was considered but not issued. I can speak to this. Prior to coming into this job, I was a risk manager for 3 years at the Provincial Dispatch Center at 80 Garland Avenue. So that dispatch center controls all of police services outside of HRM. I was an authorized user and had the ability to issue these alerts, and I issued a number of them in my time in there. What I can say is during a critical incident, things evolve rapidly within seconds at times. It involves regular communication and talking to a critical incident commander or someone who's trained on the ground that can give you a real-time developmental update on an incident. And that incident can change within seconds. So there could be movement towards thinking about an alert. However, something changes on the ground that changes the scope of that alert, where it doesn't meet the threshold any longer. There are many instances where an alert was being drafted, but not needed. In instances where an alert was not issued, other communication tools were used. And that's it on the alerting piece, subject to any questions that you may have.
Commissioners, questions? Commissioner Hinch.
Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for all the hard work that everybody did with this. I greatly appreciate it. This has been on my mind for quite some time with regards, I see that you put some incidents in there that, so my question is, why wasn't there an alert done on the New Year's Eve incident with the two that were brutally murdered? And like, I'm trying to understand, because I mean, it was New Year's Eve, people were out, they're having a good time. There was two people that were brutally murdered on this night, and they're and I can only go by from what I hear from on social media, that the person in question left that scene, walked up to the Commons, and then decided to do what he did. So my question is, why wasn't there an alert that night? Was it not called for? Was there other things done? I'm just trying to understand that.
But to the counselor, the information about that wouldn't have been known at the time. The reality of that someone that was involved went up to the Commons, like there, or even was involved, wouldn't have been known till sometime after that incident occurred.
Well, that's my question, because my thing is that we don't know where this person was. We don't know if they could have been on a rampage. This is my question. Like, why wasn't there an alert done that evening? Like, why wasn't there an alert?
Well, I'll go back to the original criteria in terms of there has to be some sort of descriptive or information about something to tell people what to do. Certainly wouldn't have said, well, don't go to the Commons, or don't go, or stay away from so-and-so, because no one would have known that at the particular time of any of these events, the first responders that go to the scene, the first officers who show up, are trying to determine what actually happened. No one knows what happened at the first potential time. And then you get into a situation around an investigation to determine, okay, what is this? Who's involved? Nobody knows these particular things.
This is an active shooter, though, Chief.
It's actually not an active shooter in terms of what an active shooter is. It was a shooting.
It was a shooting.
It was a shooting that takes, like several that take place in the city over the year, unfortunately. But unless there's some information about who's responsible, or where they're going, or they're intending to do more, or there's something to tell people, I'm not sure what an alert would have directed people to do. Certainly, we would have contained the area. The area would have been contained right away from the time we got there. the alert would have, basically what the alert would have said is what a media release said, that we responded to a shooting on Gottingen Street, and that would have been about it.
So, okay.
Most shootings that take place will probably not end up in an alert unless there's some information or something that indicates who's responsible, where they're going, are they intending to do something else, or some of that information. Most of that information in these events isn't determined until hours after the police actually get there to figure out what's actually going on. And sending out an alert 2 hours after an event, if you don't have specific information, it's not going to be overly helpful to people in that particular area. I get what you're saying from a more holistic standpoint, but for alerts, there has to be some information to give the public to do something, other than just informing something's happened.
Shelter in place. I don't know. I just feel like there could have been more done in this incident, especially being New Year's Eve. People are out having a good time. They don't know what they could have come across. They don't know if they could have encountered. You don't know if they could have encountered with this person. I'm told that the person was looking for a second person, like another person. So I mean, this is just what I'm hearing. But again, my concern is that why wasn't there an alert? If you guys did not have this person, first there was a shooting. He shot 2 people.
We know that now. We know who it was now. We knew who it was a few hours after. But the original getting there, in terms of you don't know, you don't have that information at that time. As Inspector Mitchell said, these type of events are ever changing in terms of what's going on. And there would be some discussion around, like Greg mentioned, does this warrant, do we have information that could even provide information for an alert? I don't think we had that information, in terms of.
If I may, Chief, what I would add is, another way to look at it is the incident isolated? Is it contained to a certain geography in the city? So this, we come to find out, is more of a domestic related incident as opposed to his randomly killing people. And if there was information that they were going to kill other people at random, it would have qualified for the process of the alert. This didn't meet that. Within X number of hours, I'm not sure of the timeline, that we knew who it was, we know what the outcome was to that individual. So if we were looking for that person and had information to believe he was not done killing, an alert would have been issued because it would have met the threshold for the alert. And we want to keep in line with what our other provincial partners are doing in the national standards from the Canadian Chiefs of Police. So it's not every homicide is going to warrant an alert, whether we know who the suspect is or don't know who the suspect is. So if there was shootings and the geography was changing, different places within the municipality or elsewhere, we would issue an alert to give as much information as we knew at the time. Shelter into place. We don't know who the suspect is, or we do know who the suspect is. But there was no direction to give at this time, other than we're on scene. We have deceased individuals, and a short time later, we eventually knew who was responsible. And we're no longer looking for them because they were located.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Questions? Thank you, gentlemen, for an excellent presentation and for putting a lot of work into that. That's greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you kindly. All right, we're going to move on to item number 10. There's no additions or deletions from the clerk's office. So do commissioners have any additions or deletions or modifications to the order of business? Oh, my apologies. Yes. Oh, I got the pages all folded over. 10.1, Halifax Regional Police and RCMP's HRG's chief giving their updates. And I see that Chief McLean, AKA McNeil, will be presenting first.
Yeah, good afternoon. It seems we're well into this today before we do. Normally we're into this much earlier in the.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, we're almost done. And then I went, wait a minute, we have, yeah, so there you go. So good afternoon, everyone. I'll just speak to a few things that have gone on. So I think we last met early September. As you're probably aware, there were a series of hate crimes that occurred in our city last month. I just want to say, from our team at IES taking the reports to the quality of the initial patrol response and our hate crime investigators, we end up quickly charging a 31-year-old man with mischief, property damage, and a public incitement of hatred. To everyone that was involved in that, both from the community and from our police officers' perspective, I'm certainly pleased with the outcome. Not pleased that it occurred, obviously, but there was a swift and seamless collaboration between the police and the community, and I think it, exemplified the stance that we take against such promotion of hate. Also, over the last, we charged a man with a series of offenses for defrauding seniors through a renovation and repair scam. Throughout the summer, he was approaching seniors at their homes, offering to complete renovations or small jobs and would collect a deposit but not return to complete the services. He was arrested on September 15th, but has since been charged with 15 counts of fraud under $5,000 and 15 counts of possession of property, misleading police, and for fraudulent receipts. James Dwyer, 65 years old, appeared in court last on September 24th, and to have these charges held against him. On the 12th of September, we also responded to an incident on intercolonial. That's like your word for methodology. Behind the McDonald's up off of Kemp Road, and it began as an assault with a weapon and escalated to shots being fired. One man was injured and taken to hospital. This man was subsequently charged with several firearms offenses and uttering threats. And Adam DeWolf, of 36 years old, appeared in court on September 15th. I also want to make note that on the 14th of September, officers attended a robbery at the NSLC on the Bedford Highway. Charge was an Isaac McClellan of 25. He was arrested shortly thereafter for threatening and assaulting a NSLC worker. And between the 8th and the 18th of September, police responded to 4 robberies of similar nature in gas stations and convenience stores throughout the city, where the suspect threatened violence to the worker and stole a quantity of cigarettes. On the 21st of September, Sean Hall, 39, was arrested and taken to court to face multiple robbery and related offenses. I'd also like to acknowledge the team, Superintendent Boone. I think he's left, but he was integral in this of leading up to the Davis Cup and ensuring the safety and for everyone that was involved in that event. My thanks to the officers who were involved, including those taking extra shifts to ensure the right resources are in place to support the event. The chair spoke about homecoming. Homecoming was this weekend. For those who've been on the board for a similar amount of time, usually the conversations after homecoming weren't what we were hearing this week. So I want to thank obviously my officers. I want to thank Dal. I want to thank the residents, and I want to thank the students, who still partied, and there was still some enforcement action that was needed, but they, as the letter I think indicated, they participated in a more, I guess, community friendly way, and certainly that hopefully going forward that we, we'll be able to ensure that continues. As you know, our police science program that I speak to, we will be starting in a couple weeks. We're set to have the new cadets all up and running. We're continuing to hire through our experienced police officer program. I believe I may be swearing someone in next week. And so again, anyone who's interested, we encourage them to visit our website. For the board's awareness, on September 12th of last month, we placed on our website policies around theft of vehicles, wellness checks, mental health crisis response, and involuntary psychiatric treatment act policies. From IPV perspective on domestic violence statistics for the month of September, we received 170 total reports of domestic violence. This includes reports of physical assault, harassment, and uttering threats. Of that total, 19 were designated as being high risk, which, as we learned before, reached a score of 7 or higher on the ODERA checklist or involves choking. There has also been a critical development in 15 files, which means that a file originally designated high risk and a new incident has occurred. From the firearms perspective, so far this year within HRP jurisdiction, and remains the same from our last meeting, there were 4 homicides related to firearms. We have had 14 shooting incidents, and now we're up to 338 firearms seized. HRP issued, from a traffic perspective, 466 summary offense tickets in September. 41 of those were for speeding, 20 charges laid for impaired operation of a motor vehicle, 8 suspensions issued. This month will focus on Intersection Safety Month, where HRP reminds citizens obviously to beware of all road users and stay alert and not drive distracted. I've noticed in the new Highway Traffic Act that will be coming forward, I think they made some stronger revisions around the driver distraction laws around use of devices, which is good to see. And from a community perspective, remind everyone about a couple community events. This Saturday is the 14th annual truck convoy support of Special Olympics that will take place on October 4th at Shearwater. Truckers from Nova Scotia and beyond will unite with our partners in law enforcement to support the Special Olympics athletes. Myself and Chief Superintendent Duff will both be there to give remarks, and it's something I look forward to every year. On the 19th of October is the 43rd annual Nova Scotia Fallen Peace Officers Memorial at Grand Parade. This obviously is an important day for law enforcement and remember those who lost their lives in their service to our community. Certainly welcome everyone to attend. And I'll also note that echo the chair's remarks earlier in terms of, this is the start of Mi'kmaq History Month, and it's about, it's a time to honor the distinct stories of our Mi'kmaq people. And Treaty Day is today, and we proudly fly the Treaty Day flag at our HRP headquarters, and that will be subject to any questions from the board. That's it for my submission.
I was going to suggest we'll do Chief Superintendent Duff afterwards. Commissioner Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just very quickly, Chief, I want to acknowledge the Dalhousie homecoming. I mean, that's a significant change. I know there's a lot of people involved, but that's your leadership. Once you took over as chief, you made that a priority. You showed up that first year, and to hear that report, to hear that cooperation with Dal, the students, and your officers in the community, that's significant. So, Chief, your leadership on that is well noted, and I bet you our colleagues from council, District 7 councilor is happy too, because her inbox is not as full as it normally is after that event. But thank you, Chief, for that work.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners have any questions for the chief? Very good. Chief Superintendent Duff.
Thank you very much, Chair. Hopefully I can get through without too many questions at the end, but we'll see. I got set the bar high yet again. So I know at the start of the meeting we recognized National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. We had a number of members participating in various events throughout the area. So really happy to see that, and really proud that we were involved. From a community engagement perspective, we had our CART team visit the tiny homes they were invited for a lunch in Lower Sackville. So they attended, they had lunch to help build those relationships and continue to develop our presence there. So very, very successful, very well received. On September 24th, we had our BLT community engagement session in respect to the upcoming implementation of the community office within that area. And October the 8th, we're going to be in Fall River for a community engagement session, similar in anticipation of our starting to staff the Fall River positions that were approved last year. So should be looking for a really good turnout, and anticipated to be very positive. From an operational perspective, and I've mentioned this before, there seems to be a fair trend in motor vehicle accidents, and without the stats to be specific, I see a lot of motorcycle accidents, ATV accidents. In the September 26th, we responded with fire and other emergency services to a fatal ATV crash in Sheet Harbor. 23-year-old man from Sheet Harbor. It's a lot of these collisions are preventable. So I just want to highlight the fact that there's some public education that I'm going to be recommending in respect to our area, especially related to the motorcycles and the off-road vehicles. On September 22nd, we responded to a home invasion in Sackville, where bear spray was used. There was assaults. Determined it wasn't a random event, and as a result of some search warrants being executed, 3 cans of bear mace, a replica firearm, and 3 individuals were arrested. September 17th on Lucasville Road, we had a fatal motor vehicle collision, still under investigation. However, another case of where I'm seeing a trend of some elevated public education could be very valuable. Members conducted a checkpoint on Beaverbank Road, and within a short period of time located 2 impaired drivers, which they processed very quick after having set up there within a matter of within an hour. That was the results of that. And again, just to remind the public that if you suspect any impaired drivers on our road, please call 911 so we can have an officer respond and attempt to get them off our roads in the interest of public safety. Within Sackville, between HRD Sackville members and Southeast Traffic Services, significant quantity of illegal tobacco was located, and that was just some good old-fashioned police work based on a traffic stop and asking a few extra questions. Not going to get into too much detail on the September 15th fire in Sackville. With 180 people evacuated, some fantastic teamwork there occurring between fire, the RCMP, HRP and HRD work seamlessly when those larger events and covering each other off, and it's fantastic to see that happen in that case. And then we had an armed robbery in Beachville, imitation firearm. Ultimately, through the collaboration with our partners, subject was identified having committed a number of offenses, and he was arrested. And for public information, really important, the RCMP is, through their uniform and equipment modernization, over the period of the next few months, are going to be rolling out a new duty uniform. It's going to be blue in color. So just for everybody to know, there's going to be some changes. It's going to not be something new to a lot of areas, but in some rural RCMP areas, it might be a different look. It might raise some concern based on past events. So just in respect to public knowledge, it's a good piece to have. We anticipate likely in end of December into January, we'll start seeing our members just looking a little bit different to the public. It's been ongoing for a long time in respect to quality of the uniform and a couple of safety matters. And notwithstanding any questions, that's my report.
Any questions from the commissioners? I have a question. I'm not sure who would best answer it, but you mentioned about the new driver legislation, or the new legislation that could impact safe driving with distraction. I'm just kind of curious. In today's modern cars, the technology that is putting all into the computer display device, and these things can be quite complicated to fumble your way through. That versus a phone, is there going to be a distinction? Because those screens can be immensely distracting to drivers, just like the mobile device can be.
To the chair, I believe the legislation still is directed towards handheld devices.
Thank you. I guess the other comment I wanted to make is that the Board of Police Commissioners had adopted funding to conduct its own survey across HRM around policing in general. That has now launched. And so that will be going out on a monthly basis and doing surveys. It'll be run for 12 months, and we will be getting an update in the interim over that 12-month period. I'd invite Josh if you wanted to make any other additional comments on that, or is that kind of covered off?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The only thing I'll add is that there will also be a presentation at the end of the 12 months on the overall findings. Thanks.
Excellent, thank you. So just to let the public know, they might be getting an ask to complete a survey, and we'd hope that they engage in that process. Well, that'd be great. Well, now we're moving on to 10.4, which is a welcome addition to our meeting. And so we have the title is Community Safety Update. So on a regular basis going forward, we're going to have what the province has kind of recommended as a direction that they would like to see, which is kind of an integration of community safety and policing to share feedback to the public, to the advisory, the oversight boards, which is awesome. So today we have Rachel Bohm, who's the Executive Director of HRM Community Safety, and she's going to give us some remarks.
Thank you. If you've reviewed the public safety strategy, which covers the years 2023 to 26, one of the key 3 strategies is provide a broader spectrum of responses, reducing the pressure on police and other emergency services. And so today I'm just going to update you on some of the progress we've made on that part of the strategy. So you're probably familiar with our homelessness team. We do a lot of work in encampments. Give you some examples of recent work that hopefully did reduce pressure on police and emergency services during the woods and fire bans. Our outreach team was out every day with our outreach workers and our homelessness compliance workers, doing education about the bans and making sure people had alternative ways of cooking, just visiting the sites every day to ensure fire safety, and then escalating situations if we couldn't kind of manage those risks from a education perspective. We would work with police or fire. We also recently closed the Cogswell encampment, which is one of our oldest encampments in the city. The day of the closure, there were 10 to 12 citizens at the encampment. The approach that we've adopted, the policy that you passed recently in terms of the police involvement, that's a civilian-led approach. So we go in and we really focus on being human-centered, avoiding escalation of any harm or violence that occurs. And that particular closure went very well. There was one person who wasn't ready to move on the day that we closed, so we had a mitigation for that. It's always our aim as well to connect people with alternate shelter rather than just telling people to move along to another place. And we did successfully connect people with other options. So I would say it's a good example of how the Board of Police Commissioners and actions that came about as a result of the August 18 incident from a number of years ago have really changed things for the better for neighborhoods and also for people living in the encampments. Another way that we provide a broader spectrum of responses is by providing training in the community. So an example of that is the work that we do to deliver nonviolent crisis intervention training. So this training has been delivered to 400 staff and partners of the HRM, and it means that people are equipped to de-escalate situations. And the result of that is 400 people who work with a lot of people every day, so you can imagine the ripple effect. They're de-escalating situations, not needing to call in law enforcement, preventing violence, connecting people to mental health resources or other things that can help prevent escalation of violence. Another group that does a lot of work as an alternate response is our AIM team. So in June 2024, Council had approved the creation of this team. There are a lot of service providers working with people living rough or in the shelter. Many of them are Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 type services. So there was a gap with evening and weekend responses. So examples would be a violent altercation in an encampment, or someone in a shelter that maybe is escalating and might need to be discharged. In the past, in the evening and weekends, the police would have been called or emergency services would have been called. The AIM team is now responding to those types of incidents. They respond to about 120 such incidents each month. Their activities are really diverse. They could maybe be providing food or clothing to someone. They could be resolving a conflict. They could provide transportation to somebody who's wandering around a public area that people are concerned about, or they can refer to other needed services such as mental health. The bigger news is something that's going to be launching this month, and I'm not going to talk a lot about it today because you'll be hearing more about it. I am presenting next week as well. It's called the CARE Team, and it's an alternate response team geared to people in distress. We've worked closely with other like services to make sure there won't be duplication. So it's not meant to do the same thing that Mental Health Mobile Crisis is doing. It's not providing mental health assessment, but it's those calls that don't really meet the criteria for Mental Health Mobile Crisis. More social needs that can be addressed by a team. It's a partnership with 211. HRM Community Safety is overseeing the project, and Souls Harbor. It's a pilot project, so there's a limited geographical area to start with, and it'll be in the Dartmouth area, and I'll provide more detail about that when we're ready to launch. Phase 1 of the project will be just daytime hours in a specified geographical area. Then later, after a few months, we'll expand to 24/7. That'll be a 2-year pilot, and then it'll be evaluated. We've built this team based on successful similar teams in other jurisdictions. So we're confident it's going to realize its outcomes. One of them would be reduce calls to police for social type issues. And at that point, after the pilot, of course, we'll determine whether or not it would be expanded to a broader area. Finally, I just wanted to give an update on youth services and senior safety, especially relevant to the discussion we had about transit today. There are youth services strategies and senior safety strategies overseen by our teams, and we do a lot of engagement around these issues. So there are places that concerns like transit safety and youth can come to tables, and we can engage with youth on topics like that. That's my report for today. Thanks.
Thank you. I wanted to extend on a comment that you referenced in relation to the closure of the Cogswell Park, and some very positive feedback came back in. And I'd like to share that the feedback was from community safety, that regarding the professionalism and conduct of 2 of HRP's constables, specifically Ann Giffen and Dan Kavanaugh, and that the feedback was that during the recent closure of the encampment, there was a situation that developed, and they played a critical role in the de-escalation and determining, an alternative mechanism. And Chief McLean, please extend our, appreciation to both constables in relation to that event, and all the entire team that was involved in that. Thank you. Open the floor to any questions. Commissioner Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rachel, thank you very much. It's great, colleagues, to have as a regular agenda item a community safety update. I think this is fantastic. Just a couple of comments I want to make, and I do have a question at the end. First of all, and it was, I think we alluded to at the last Board of Police Commission meeting, the work that was done right where we're sitting here in the Alderey Landing piece. And that, that's an example of challenges when we're dealing with homeless and other issues and youth, it takes many partners to make it happen. So we reduced the issues that have been around this facility where we're sitting right now. We do have a satellite police office. We have the community response officer that's very, very well engaged here. The closing of the Nova Scotia Liquor Commission office storefront, and the work by the safety team. It took a lot of moving parts, and not that it's perfect, but it's reduced dramatically. So just an example, it takes a lot of people, a lot of different agencies to make this work. So, and particularly community safety team, thank you for that. The CARE team launch, extremely excited for that CARE team launch. We've talked about that for years. For those of you that have been at this Board of Police Commission meetings before, when we come to budget time, we would have heard very clearly that they don't want police responding to certain types of crises and incidents. Well, this is exactly in response to that. So it'll be interesting if those same folks will come here in a few weeks' time to talk about budget again. If they're here listening, hopefully they are, but I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to share that. So really excited with that work. And that's also to my colleagues at council in supporting that endeavor, because it has to be funded by council in many ways. And so it's a team effort also. So very excited to hear more about how that launch goes, Rachel, and the more data, the more stats I'm sure that you'll be collecting to share with us so we can continue to support that. And I know it's going to be successful. Great to hear about the de-escalating training, over 400 staff and partners. That is critical. So good stuff. So my question is around the homeless strategy. You talked about one of the encampments we've closed, but I do want to talk about close to where we are right now. And that's the issues in this community. And this is not my part of my district. This is Councillor Sam Austin's district, but we work very closely together. Is the issues related to the provincial run bridge, which is the old hotel right next to the McDonald Bridge, which is housing and doing work to help people that need help. But at the same time, Rachel, there's a real challenge with the surrounding areas. And I look at right next to the bridge, we have a skate park and tennis courts and basketball courts and a splash pad. They're constantly having behavior that's not appropriate, not safe for the community. The illegal activity of the drug use in an open area, the needles, and even though the great folks in mainland continue to do sweeps there, parents having to sweep and dig through the surface, not sawdust, but the wood chips in the playground and such, looking for needles and the houses in the residential area here. It is a challenge. My respect to those that help the people that need help, and we should continue down that path. But there has to be a better balance right now. And so I know that you've been involved, and Commissioner Moore has been involved in a number of meetings, I believe, Chief McLean in the surrounding areas. But what's the strategy right now to address that? What is the province's response? Because it's their facility, and I'm glad that they're stepped up. But we've got to do something right now. It's just inappropriate to have that kind of activity where families and residents are, particularly children.
Yeah, through the chair to the councillor, commissioner. We have had a number of those concerns brought forward. We do have a public safe public spaces team. So we have engaged them regarding to the park space next to 99 Wise Road. We also meet every week with OSD and service providers. So I encourage everyone to continue to bring concerns, because we do escalate them not only to the service provider but to the funder of the service provider. So it's important that that information be passed along. People can also call 311. In terms of a more systemic approach to this, one of the actions in the public safety strategy that hasn't been actioned that I hope that is next on my list is the drug policy task force or committee. I forget the exact language in the strategy, but I think it's important. Public problematic substance use is increasing, not only in our municipality, but across the country, and different cities are trying different approaches, but we need to look at what can we do in Halifax and bring together the best minds, including researchers, medical professionals, but what are the gaps in terms of treatment, care, drop-in services, assertive outreach teams that perhaps our city is missing that could be implemented. Many of them are going to be outside of the scope of municipal staff.
Of course.
But I think a group like that could really help identify some positive strategies. Lacking that group right now, I think we need to make sure we get the data and the reports on issues. We do have ability for our homelessness team to respond, and we are responding to them frequently. With the care team launch in the coming months, at least one geographical area will be able to access the care team for calls like that as well. So I think there's some positive change on the horizon, but I acknowledge that it's a big need.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Yeah, Rachel, the data collection is, we need the data. We need to fill in those gaps, and identify what those gaps are, first of all, then fill them in. And yes, I never thought about the care team. That'll be a focus for them, I'm sure. Again, I just repeat that it is a community safety issue right now. None of us would like to have our home next to what's going on in that area. And at the same time, I do respect the fact that we're trying to help people that need help in that balance. So I look forward to hearing more reporting on that. Thank you, Rachel. Appreciate it. Mr. Chair.
I would note, as Rachel referenced in her presentation, that on Monday, the public review session for the service enhancement requests, Rachel will be giving a presentation, some broader topics, community safety, and as well care. So that'll be part of the initial kickoff presentation. Vice Chair Kent.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to acknowledge as well the work that's being done within community safety. This is a area within the municipality that really came about over the last CAO or the outgoing CAO, Kathy O'Toole. That was part of her strength that came to the municipality, and I think she should be acknowledged as well. The team that was put together to start that and then grow so quickly into and Bill sitting next to me, our commissioner of public safety, is now moved into the same work but broader level with our police and our fire and some bylaw service as well. I think you have, and as well, you, Rachel, being part of the team. I also want to acknowledge Dr. Amy Siciliano. Amy is a force and a bright and caring member of the team. We're lucky to have her, but also I think that as a result of these bright minds around us, we've got a really strong case and strong team of people who truly do care around these social issues. It's when I was on council the first time, the usual narrative that we received when we were talking about social issues was, that's not our mandate, that's the province. And being part of a progressive council over the last number of years has been refreshing, although there's still a lot of work that has to be done from a provincial level. They're all the same constituents when we look at the issues and things that are happening in our municipality. They're provincial constituents, they're federal constituents. So sometimes the layer of which level of government really should be taking the lead on these issues that are significant: mental health, or housing challenges that people face, some of the public safety features that are related to changing models. That really needs to be the collaboration of many levels of government, many agencies, and our public safety space and our community safety space is really the hub of creating those. We received here in this board a report that was related to funding, and that was called the defunding report. But in that report, we saw many, many things that were being recommended that were outside the scope of what our municipality would have normally taken on as leader or co-leaders, or moving the notch a bit on the spectrum of things to get done. But since then, I think the shout out and the strength and the thanks and the gratitude needs to be in our community safety and our public safety office, because they're our means to that change. And I think we're off to a wonderful start. There's still lots to do, but I and many of the people around this table are certainly here. We appreciate hearing what you're doing. We don't have governance over the space that you occupy. Council does, but you're a partner, and you're a partner within the structure of council and now of a board. So I think Mr. Chair, I think it was a great idea to have Rachel become an item that is regularly on our agenda. And lastly, I will ask, and this is where my question comes, do we have to do anything more to make sure that it's no longer at the bottom, or that it will be regularly in this? We don't have any legislative requirement to have added this to our agenda, because some of the agenda has been really very much stipulated in the act,
So.
or in min order.
So the HRP and the RCMP updates have been a standing agenda item for several years. So if received direction from the chair that this should be included on the agenda, so it's just going to be
Perfect.
included after the chief's updates.
Okay, terrific. Just wanted to make sure that was clear to folks. Okay, that's great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your words of recognition, and I'll share them with our team.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Commissioner Bezic-Escanlar.
Thanks, Chair. Just echoing the colleagues that who have spoken eloquently. I think we are very excited to see how the pilot will go. The only question I will add is just, can you specify again, what does CARE stand for? Thanks.
Yes. Just a minute. Make sure I get it right. Crisis Assistance and Response Service. That's how new it is. I have to look up the acronym.
Commissioner Hinch.
Thank you, Rachel. I just want to echo the same sentiments as well. You know, I appreciate all that you do, all that your team does. I'm glad to see that we're moving forward in a positive direction when it comes to civilian-led approach. The AIMS team. So I'm glad that's put in place. So that's for after hours. So on the weekends, after hours, how many folks do you have for that particular program?
It's not actually run by HRM, so
Okay.
it's staffed by Souls Harbor.
Okay.
I believe they have 2 people that go out in pairs.
Okay.
And yes, it is after hours and evenings, weekends, because daytime there are more resources available in the community, such as our outreach team, and Shelter Nova Scotia also has an outreach team. So it's really addressing that gap of after hours and weekends.
How do we notify, or how do they get notified if there's a situation?
They have a dedicated cell number that is circulated to key partners, so it's not a service that the public accesses.
Okay.
But for instance, our partners in law enforcement, emergency services, healthcare, social services, shelters would all have that number. So for instance, like if a shelter is having, an issue with someone, they feel it might be able to be resolved without having to evict a person out onto the street in the middle of the night. AIM could come and try to de-escalate the situation, or maybe transport the person to another shelter. So those kind of situations, or maybe someone who's intoxicated, who's not violent, not requiring a law enforcement approach, but just needs some redirection or referral to some services. They would go out in the evening and respond to those sorts of situations.
Thank you.
Great. Any other commissioners? Questions for Rachel? All right, barring none, we'll move on to 10.2. In our continued work around revisiting our policies and such, there is item 10.2.1, supplemental administrative policies of the board. So there is a motion that needs to be, that I could ask a counselor to put on the floor, or a commissioner, sorry, to put on the floor. Thank you, Commissioner Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Put the following motion on the floor that the Board of Police Commissioners for the Halifax Regional Municipality 1 adopt in principle, subject to a period of public comment, the policy supplemental administrative policies of the board for inclusion in the Board of Police Commissioners Policy Manual, as outlined in the attachment 1 of this report. And 2, amend Administrative Policy 1, the procedures of the Board of Police Commissioners administrative policy by including provisions on the election of the chair and vice chair and board member attendance as outlined in attachment 2 of this report. So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm going to ask Mr. Bates, our policing policy strategist, to give us a bit of a background around the work that's been done and how it's being carved up into 2 sections, 2 updates. Thank you, Mr. Bates.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And as the Chair referenced, this proposed policy evolved from an ongoing review of the policy manual, which revealed that 4 policies are deemed redundant with either the Police Act, Admin Policy 1, P100, or the police regulations under the Police Act. So if adopted, this new policy would replace these 4 current policies, which are authority to create policies, board roles and responsibilities, role of chair, vice chair, meetings, procedure policy, and board self-evaluation. So while these policies overall are deemed redundant, there are specific provisions within each of these policies that are not covered in any other policy. So the proposed policy would collect each of these provisions under a single policy. And these provisions include stating the board's role in member recruitment, outlining the board's role in creating and adopting policies, outlining the board's role in the budget process, outlining requirements to be included in the board's annual report. And there are several housekeeping items as well, such as how we deal with honorariums, memberships to external organizations, travel and training requirements, etc. So generally speaking, these provisions formalize the board's existing practices. So the first recommendation is to adopt in principle, pending a period of public comment, the policy. And during that period of public comment, the policy would be posted on our website. So members of the public would be invited to email the board with any comments. The second recommendation is to amend Admin Policy 1, which speaks to meeting procedures of the board, to include provisions on the election of the chair and vice chair and board member attendance. And these provisions are included in attachment 2. The provisions are currently in the policy manual, but because they speak generally to how meetings are run, we feel as staff that they'd be a better fit for Admin Policy 1, thus the 2 recommendations and the 2 separate documents. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions you might have.
Perhaps before we go to questions, our board solicitor, Martin Ward, would like to offer a couple of supplemental comments.
So Josh and I worked on this, I think it's fair to say, although he did most of the legwork on it. Really, the board would not remember, but at one time there was a policy vacuum. And Carol McDougall, who was a member then, was kind enough to write the first policies. Tony may have been here then. Before your time even, okay. And so what happened after that was when she wrote the policy manual, she took a lot of extracts straight out of the legislation and shoved them in there. It really ended up with a mishmash of things. And over time, we've just sort of patchworked that, added one thing after another in there. So what Josh has really done here is rationalize the the policy here is such that things that are legislative are removed because they're in the legislation. Secondly, things that already should be in procedure, the rules of procedure for the board have been put there, such as the election of the chairman and those sort of things. And then there are this random miscellaneous administrative provisions, which don't fit in either of those, but are really essential. And Josh has referred to some of those. And so they really created a secondary administrative gathering of those in a policy for the policy manual. So really what you're being asked to do is a couple things, is to move the ones that are in there that should be over in the board number 1 procedure over into there, and to take the others and group them all together, the ones that are necessary in this supplementary policy. So is that fair, Josh? Is that where we are with it?
Yeah, that's succinct, description of what we're doing. Thank you.
Okay, and I should also say Bill looked at this and saw there was kind of a mishmash too. So we're kind
Andrea
of
as well.
and Andrea too. So we're getting the house in order here, really. Thanks.
Excellent. Any questions by any of the commissioners? Commissioner Mancini?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just very quickly, Josh, how are we going to engage with the public? I know you said it's on our website, but how are we going to let the public know that we're looking for their feedback? Is the comms, HRM comms doing something, or how are we going to get the message out?
Typically, we've just made the announcement in this format, this venue here. And it goes onto our website and goes up for a period of a couple of weeks.
I just think we can, there's an opportunity through counselors, newsletters, and social media, that if we can get a promotional graphic with links and so on, so we can say, we need your feedback, public, and be clear on what we are. We can push that out. Each of us have thousands of people that follow us, but so.
Yeah, commissioners and of course counselors as well are welcome to push this out. So there's gonna be an announcement on the website. I could circulate that to the board, and then you could circulate that to your network.
If we can get something created, and we do have support in our support staff at City Hall. If you want to give us the raw material, we can get that person to create something so that we can use on social media and for our newsletters. Thank you.
Commissioner Moore, would you like to add some supplemental information?
Yeah, thanks, Chair, to Commissioner. Just to remind the board as well, we have another resource coming online, hopefully shortly, to support the board, partly in communications and partly in the amount of work that the clerk's office has been kind of stretching out to do. That's really not clerk's office role. So we've taken those two pieces. So we're in the process now of it's on the market, so we should hopefully have someone relatively shortly that may be able to assist with some of those other things as well.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions from any of the board members? All for the question. All those in favor? Contrary-minded? Motion passed. Thank you. We're moving on to 10.3.1, and it's related to a motion by Commissioner Kent for endorsement of our Canadian Association of Police Governance Board representative. Commissioner Kent, or
Yes.
Vice Chair Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a motion that's been crafted that I'm going to read, and then I may make some changes so that it moved that the Board of Police Commissioners for the Halifax Regional Municipality request the chair to send a letter to the Executive Director of the Canadian Association of Police Governance endorsing the election of Commissioner Beswick Escanlar as a Nova Scotia representative on the CAPG board. So I'll speak to it in that we're asking that a letter be written to endorse Commissioner, but yet Commissioner is acting already, and have we actually appointed him to the board on our level? No, so it feels like we should have a number 1 and a number 2. Oh, Josh. Okay, let's hear from Josh, and then I'd like to come back.
Yeah, you raise a great point, Vice Chair. So typically what would happen is that before a member is nominated and named to the national board, they would be endorsed by their local board. In this case, what happened is that the commissioner was nominated from the floor, so that didn't happen. So I had a conversation with the executive director of CAPG. He said, listen, this is not a big deal, but what would, just to formalize the process, what would be a good practice would be for the board to endorse him retroactively, so to have something in writing saying that the commissioner has the support of the board. So
Okay, so then I feel like we should have a two-part. We should have one that officially we endorse Vincent, and number two would be the letter that goes with it. So I will move that or add that to my motion. Is that friendly enough, Mr. Legalese? Thanks, Marty. And you're good with it. So I will move to endorse Commissioner Beswick Escalar to the Canadian Association of the Police move that the Board of Police Commissioners, Halifax Regional Municipality, endorse Commissioner Beswick Escalar to Canadian Association of Police Governance. And so that's moved and seconded. Number two, that the board do all that I just read.
A letter.
Yeah.
Understood. Commissioner Bezic Escalar, did you
Do you
want to say
accept-
anything
do
on
you
this?
accept
Now that
that?
you're the subject of all this?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, everyone. So as Josh said, it was it came up at the CAPG meeting as a nomination from the floor from a friend, which I was happy to accept. It would be an honor to represent our board at their board. Their board is doing a lot of important initiatives that improve governance for all boards across the country. As I've said before, on my short time that I've been on the Halifax board, I've been impressed by the innovation and the work and the expertise and the dedication, the professionalism by everyone around the table here, which I hope to bring some examples of which as the CAPG continues its own evolutions of boards at the national level. So with the blessing of the board, I would be happy to be part of that.
Excellent. Anybody want to speak to the motion?
I would like to just
Vice Chair Kent.
round it out with a thank you to our Commissioner Yemi Akindojo, who's been fulfilling that role for a number of years now. He did a tremendous job, and this would be the replacement for that. It's not. It's a second seat. Oh, okay. I didn't know. Is this a new one?
Sorry, there was always two representatives from Nova Scotia, and in the past, one came from this board, and one potentially came from a different board within Nova
Gotcha.
Scotia.
Okay.
But they weren't designated to a specific delegacy to a board. They were open representatives to the board from Nova Scotia as a jurisdiction. And so Yemi still continues to serve in that position.
Wonderful. So
Yep.
this is then now just us having had the opportunity to, where it was empty and no one else had come forward from any other area in Nova Scotia, we were able to then
Yes.
appoint a second one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that, I'll call the question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Motion carried. All right, 10.4 was moved. We already had the presentation from Rachel. No added items. I don't believe there's a requirement for an in-camera session today. No. Any notice of motions that any commissioners would like to make? Barring none, the date of the next meeting is October the 6th, though that is a virtual meeting. And that is the opportunity for public input on the service enhancement requests by Halifax Regional Police and HRD. And that will start at, I believe, 4 p.m. Yeah. And
Again,
so,
Mr. Chair, I have a similar question. How is that notice going out to people? How do they know about that?
I don't know.
They know.
There's been social media posts about the public consultation.
To adjourn.
Thank you. We have a mover for adjournment. So, have a good day.